An entrepreneur.
Ben Weisenstein.
Ben Weisenstein.
Ben Weisenstein.
I'm Ben Weisenstein.
Life can be very tough. It can have some terrible times. But there's also a lot of wonderfulness about life.
Yeah, man. Hustlers, man. My guy always had business mind, business sense. Now we still standing, man. And we are rolling.
Get in here. So, thanks again. I definitely appreciate you coming by.
Yeah.
I know you're not too far, but you travel a lot.
I do. I just got back today from. The last stop was Dallas. I was started in Paris, and then was in Kazakhstan and Almaty, and then Dallas, Tokyo, Dallas, and then home.
Wow. So Paris, Dallas, Kazakhstan. What were you there for?
So my wife and I live in town. Our younger son lives in Paris. He went to high school here. He's 22, and then
what's he doing in Paris?
He was going to school. Now he's working. He works for a filmmaker there, and he's been. I was actually meeting with him. One of the agencies we use in Spain approached me about doing an F1 project with the Alfa Romeo team, and my son and one of his friends do a lot in graphic design and brand development, and so they actually met in high school at Pratt in Brooklyn at a brand designs program.
Oh wow!
And one of his friends, Victor Franco, has been done a lot of street projects for South by Southwest, and he's done some things for my brand, for Excess, over the years. So we brought them in to try and build some collaborations with the F1 Alfa Romeo team.
Nice. So you work with that team in some capacity?
Yeah, well, that's what we're putting together a plan right now for how to basically redesign the F1 Alfa Romeo brand and do their merchandising, and probably do a collaboration with some street artists. So we're trying to really elevate the F1 brand of Alfa Romeo.
Interesting.
And they've got, I think, Nick Schumacher, Michael Schumacher's son's going to be driving for them in 2 or 3 years. So Kimi Räikkönen is the driver for them now, the primary driver for them now. So there's they've got a lot of great legacy, but they want to kind of elevate to the next level, especially with some hot young talent coming up.
Are you a big racing fan?
I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And at least I don't really know motorsports that well.
Same.
But I've had Danica Patrick. She's a friend of mine. She was on my podcast.
Oh, cool.
And certainly learned a lot about Indy and NASCAR racing from her.
Yeah. She's a big one. How did you guys originally meet?
Her boyfriend's a good friend of mine.
Oh, cool.
Aaron Rodgers. So we met through him.
So how did you meet Aaron Rodgers? That's an interesting connection.
I met Aaron not far, just on Ocean Way, right over here. Another friend of mine, Rob Bell, who's an author, asked me to take his friend Aaron stand-up paddling.
Okay.
Didn't really tell me any more than that. And
just my buddy Aaron.
Yeah, and Rob's funny that way. He knows he's pretty well. He's a well-known author, and so he knows a lot of interesting people, and he usually doesn't talk, brag about or anything. So, anyways, he said, "Hey, would you take my friend Aaron stand-up paddling?" I was like, "Sure." And so we met at another friend's house down here, Glenn Rodgers, and I wasn't really watching a lot of NFL football, so I didn't know who he was. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking. I said, well, "Aaron, what do you do?" And he said, "I play football." And I said, "Oh, cool. Who do you play for?" And he said, "The Green Bay Packers." And I said, "That's awesome. My mom's from Wisconsin. My uncle's a big Packers fan." I said, what position do you play? And he said, "Quarterback." And I didn't really know what to say at that point. I was just like, "Well, that's cool. I think there's a lot of opportunity at quarterback."
Yeah, so, there's a lot of opportunity there.
He started laughing. And then we went stand-up paddling. Lagoon is pretty low-key, so nobody really hassled him or was really on him for anything. And,
is this a while back?
This was like 3 or 4 years ago,
okay.
I think. And then he was terrible at stand-up paddling, which is pretty normal if you're a guy. Your weight's up in your shoulders, so it's tougher.
Even for someone that athletic, though.
Yeah, because it's just getting it's muscle memory and figuring out how the board's going to respond and things like that.
Is the balance? Because I remember the one time I did it, balance seemed a little hard.
Yeah, so the board's moving in a lot of directions, especially in the ocean, and Women tend to be more natural at it just because their weight's lower on their body. They typically more weight in their hips and less in their shoulders.
Yeah.
Men have more weight in their shoulders, less in their hips.
Interesting.
Just the
how we're built.
How we're built by gender. And so women will get on a lot of times and just take off, and guys are always tipping over, especially the taller and stronger you are.
Yeah.
It's just harder until you figure out the balance and stuff. So he was struggling, but he was also really competitive, and I kept heckling him, and I was like, "Dude, are you sure you're a professional athlete?" and he got a kick. I mean, I think at the time he wasn't too pleased with me, but he got a kick out of it later, and we've become pretty good friends. So yeah.
That's great. So do you do that just for fun? You train people on paddle? Is that a side thing?
Yeah, I mean, I love the ocean. I got back today, surfed at Rockpile.
I love it.
Not the best surfer, but I enjoy it, and surf a lot. And so when people want to get in the water, I love taking people out in the ocean, free diving, surfing, stand-up paddling, whatever.
What's your favorite surfing?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing's surfing, but I love it all. I just love being in the ocean.
Yeah, you go scuba diving at all?
Yeah.
Nice.
I do a lot of. I mean, scuba's great if you're in the right location. Mm-hmm. I think here, our visibility isn't. It's 30 feet at best generally.
Yeah.
Where, so I like free diving here better, and we have a lot of structure. So there's a lot of caves and a lot of swim throughs, and a lot of really interesting things to free dive on.
Yeah.
But it's not really. There's no reason to dive too deep around here because unless you're going to go to Catalina, it's just not clear enough.
I actually haven't been to Catalina since I've lived in California. Would you highly recommend it? Or?
It's cool. Yeah, it's definitely worth the trip. You know, it's like a great weekend trip.
Yeah.
Do you scuba dive?
I haven't yet. I mean, I'm open-minded, so it's something like I probably should try at some point.
In North Laguna, there's a really great dive shop, Laguna Sea Sports. You can get certified there.
Yeah. So you do have to get certified before you go. That's how it works?
Yeah, so you go and you get certified. You do some classes. If you're at a resort, you can do what are called resort dives, but you won't go very deep. And, it's better just to get certified and just go through it and do it.
Yep.
And part of the process, there's a pool process and then an open water process. So it's great. You can just walk down and this, the diving in Divers Cove or Shaw's Cove where they go is pretty decent. So.
Yeah. And then surfing, when did you start surfing?
When I was younger. I was like I grew up in Michigan.
You grew up in Michigan.
Yeah, and so we lived on a lake, and we grew up racing sailboats and then windsurfing, racing windsurfers, and then we get big violent storms, and then you get waves from those that are surfable, pretty surfable.
Interesting.
So I started surfing when I was in probably middle school in Michigan, and then my family, we'd travel, so surfed a lot in Florida, the Bahamas, and then...
Yep. Do you know where Charlevoix is by chance?
I do. I've been to Charlevoix. I've sailed to Charlevoix.
Oh, very cool. So that's one of the places I've been in Michigan. Yeah, it is beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Very cool. Lake Charlevoix.
Yeah, northern Michigan.
Yep.
That's great.
And then how far were you from Ann Arbor?
So I was born in Detroit, in Grosse Pointe, which is on the east side of the state.
Were you born when you were born in Detroit? Was it a nice area? Was it a bad area? Because obviously it's.
I was born there in '69, so I don't remember much because we moved when I was 1 to Baltimore.
Yeah,
my dad was in med school.
Yep.
So Grosse Pointe I think has always been nice, but we lived in Baltimore and DC. It was during the Vietnam War. My dad had to serve in Vietnam after med school at Johns Hopkins, and then we moved back to West Michigan, the other side of the state, which is Grand Haven, Michigan, is straight across from Milwaukee on Lake Michigan. Mm-hmm. But Detroit now. We actually own some houses in Detroit with a group called Life Builders, but.
What's Life Builders?
So it's a nonprofit. One of my friends from college lives here in Laguna, but he's from Detroit.
Cool.
And his family's there. His parents bought probably 30 or 50 houses when everything fell apart there.
Wow.
And started rebuilding communities block by block.
Yeah.
Not only building the houses, but working to help people, really figure out how to get their lives pulled back together, get into jobs and things like that.
Yep.
So it's a little area called Regent Park, which is basically west of Grosse Pointe.
Okay.
And so we've been buying some houses in there, and they rent them out and take care of them. But it's been a lot of fun to see Detroit rebuild itself. I think downtown Detroit is really one of the cooler cities in America now.
Really?
It's kind of like a new Brooklyn. It's
interesting.
Insane bars, great restaurants. You can still get into them.
If
you go to Brooklyn, it's pretty hard to get into.
Good point.
But it's and it's really reasonable. They're still fairly inexpensive.
Is it a little funky like Brooklyn too, or
super funky? Yeah, there's like a huge art community that's booming. I think a lot of artists have, young artists have moved there because it's so affordable and they'll kind of let you do things.
Yep.
And they have, it was one of the big cities in America for a long time, so they have these really killer buildings that were abandoned that now have been redone. And
are they super cheap still?
I mean, it's a lot less expensive. If you look at the cost of, like, you know, for example, they just opened up in January they're going to start in Manhattan. They're going to start selling apartments and penthouses in the what's it called, the Astor. Anyways, one of the classic high rises. It'll come to me in a second.
Yeah.
But it was a Grand Hotel, and now it's just got redone. It just jumped out of my head.
No worries. I know when that happens. Yeah.
So a penthouse in one of the new high-rise buildings, one of the vintage high-rises that have just gotten redone. Like the Woolworth building is one, and then they'll come to me in a second. Are probably $70-80 million. In Chicago, they're $8 million. Right. So it's a factor of 10. In Detroit, it's probably you can probably buy penthouses for million, for probably half that, for probably $3 million. So it's very affordable. It's not free, but but there's some amazing deals, and there's just a lot of, if you go to Lake St. Clair, there's used to have the Ford Estate and all these big beautiful homes on the water that are probably a tenth of what they would be a place like here or Chicago.
Yep. So is that one of your main focuses? I know we'll kind of jump all over the place, but you'll see this is the most ADD podcast of all time.
No, it's good. No, it's fine. Yeah,
I love it.
I'm severely ADD, so
perfect. This will work.
Yeah.
So is one of your main, and I'm going to open that energy drink too, by the way.
These are Excess Energy drinks, which is a brand I founded.
So is this your main brand, or is this more of a fun brand for you? Or
no, this is this is a brand that I co-founded in 2001, and we sold it. We've jumping around here, but
you're good.
We were the first energy drink to be sugar-free, to have flavors, to use megadoses of B12.
I feel like the sugar-free thing's a huge point now.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Our whole brand was built on this premise that sugar is the new cigarettes. It's killing people. There's this obesity and diabetes epidemic. Yep. And in 2001, 2002, it was kind of a new idea. We were the first one to actually call it sugar-free.
Wow.
Instead of calling it diet.
Wow. Who was in the game when you went in the game? Was Monster?
So I had owned a Red Bull distributorship in the late 90s. So Red Bull existed and was probably about 250 million when we started. Now they're 20 billion or so.
I was going to say they're probably much bigger. Yeah.
And Monster didn't exist yet. Hanson's, which is what Monster came out of.
Not to cut you off, that's actually really tasty. And I'd be honest, I would just not say anything. I wouldn't say it's bad on it, but it's very tasty.
You like it? Good.
Yeah, the root beer flavor.
Yeah, cool. So now we're in 60 countries.
Oh.
The brand does about $500 million a year.
Nice.
We sold it in 2015 to our distributor. We only distributed through Amway, a big direct seller.
Yep.
In 2015, and we were exclusive with them from 2003 to 2015. So we kind of built it on their platform.
Interesting.
And it was a very profitable business the whole way through, and then they bought us, and I ran it for 3 years post-acquisition. We literally tripled the size of our business during that period.
How did you go about tripling?
Well, we expanded in new markets. We went from 20 countries to about 60 countries.
Yep.
And that was probably maybe half of our growth. The other half of our growth came from expanding into sports nutrition.
Okay.
And so we went big into sports nutrition. In fact, we just launched CBD in North America, 2 topicals a few days ago.
Interesting. CBD is becoming huge. I actually just had a guy on recently. I don't know. Are you familiar with the CBD shop in Laguna?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. I don't know who owns it, but I've seen it.
Yeah, it's this guy Ryan. He's actually a really interesting guy.
Oh, cool.
He has a cool background, but I'll tell you more about him later. But it is interesting. I'm noticing CBD kind of everywhere. Sunscreen.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to be touching.
Oh, you're good. I move it so much.
Okay, cool. I think CBD right now is everyone's looking for it. Everyone's talking about it. People are trying to figure out what quality, how much they need, how they should be taking it, how they should be using it. The FDA hasn't even weighed in yet on edibles or ingestibles.
Why is that? Why haven't they weighed in yet?
They just take time. I mean, I think right now they're just reacting, right? Because they're just playing catch-up ball, and they don't really, I think they're trying to figure it out. And the market's moving so fast. I mean, we went from this stuff being illegal to, CBD being legalized, marijuana being legalized, and being driven by states, which, have been setting most of those boundaries and guidelines, to now the federal government's trying to figure out how to nationally legislate.
Yep.
Canada just regulated or just legalized edibles for CBD, and I think their standards are probably. My best guess is their standards are probably going to be mimicked by the United States, which is you have to be GMT certified, so kind of pharmaceutical grade
Okay.
CBD if you're going to ingest it.
Uh-huh.
And then they set some boundaries on
You're starting
quantities.
you're starting with topical, is that what you said?
Yeah, because topicals are, nationally legal without any
Yeah.
real issues with the FDA.
Is that the main reason to start with topical? It's an easier end to start.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
our business is big enough that we could be a target if we were doing something that was
Exactly.
inappropriate or illegal,
Yeah.
and or could be considered to be illegal. I wouldn't say it's illegal now; it just isn't regulated. And
Yeah.
could be problematic. So we're doing it in a way that I think is responsible and is isn't going to run afoul of national guidelines.
Yeah.
So it's great when you have a local state store because you can just go with state regulations, which are pretty easy to comply with. But we have to sell nationally, and so it's a little different.
So how are you distributing that then?
That's also through Amway. So we're
Okay.
using they have direct. They're a direct selling company.
Yep.
They have tens of thousands of individual mom and pop distributors in the United States.
Yep.
Some of them have quite large businesses.
Yeah.
But so we distribute through them in the U.S. and then in the rest of the world as well.
So how did you go about getting that partnership with Amway? Was that a long play, or did that?
Well, I'd done a lot of startups in the 90s. Or not a lot. I'd done a few startups.
If you don't mind backing up, I'd love to hear about that. Yeah.
So I went to graduated university in 1991. I studied philosophy and political science. Had 2 degrees.
Were you in school in California? Or?
Chicago.
Okay.
And at Wheaton College.
Cool.
Got kicked out of Wheaton and finished at a school called Calvin College in Grand Rapids.
Nice.
Two liberal arts colleges.
Yep.
And they weren't hiring a lot of philosophers in 1991. So
You said you're studying philosophy.
yeah. And honestly, you study philosophy because you want to go into law or something like that. I worked in politics. I worked for a think tank, a couple think tanks, and did work with the U.S. term limits, with the term limits movement, managing a lot of the Western states. But right out of college,
Interesting.
basically went to Japan because Japan was still in this bubble economy.
Yep.
And if you had a college degree, you could teach English and edit in English for different companies, and you could make anywhere from $30 to $150 an hour right out of college, which is pretty good.
Yeah,
So,
especially then.
Yeah, especially in '91. That was real money back then.
Yeah.
So I went over there, worked for a while, and then came back to work at a small think tank in West Michigan in Grand Rapids, the Acton Institute.
What was that like? I'm a news junkie. So,
Are you?
yeah.
So
Curious.
think tanks generally are either doing like public policy research. I worked for the American Enterprise Institute in D.C., which does a lot of public policy work. I worked for a lady named Susie Garment there, who used to edit the Wall Street Journal's op-ed page.
Nice.
And when I worked for Acton, they were doing more. So their whole thing was educating religious leaders on free market economics, which sounds a little weird, but their theory was, look, you've got the religious leaders, especially 30 years ago, have quite a big impact on the population, but most of them have no idea how economics works, particularly free market economics.
Good point.
The way that a pastor in a church or a priest, makes a living is they pass a hat, right? They pass the collection plate, and people put their money in, and that's kind of a zero-sum game, right? It's there's only so much money in the room, and people give some of that money to the church, and that's how the church earns its living. And so naturally, a lot of them think that's how economies work.
Yep.
When the reality is, at least from my perspective, the way a healthy economy works, or a free market economy, is if you want more pie, you don't take pie from somebody else, you bake them, right? And you sell them, and as you sell a pie to somebody else, they exchange money. They have more money in their pocket than pie on their plate, so they
Great
give you some
analogy.
money, right? You get rid of some of your pie, you get some of their money, they get rid of some money, they get some pie, the world's a happier place.
I agree.
Wealth is created.
I agree.
And
Not an Elizabeth Warren fan, I think.
I mean, politics is tricky because
It is.
I think I'm not sure who you like anymore in politics, but
Yeah.
no, I am not. I don't think zero sum I understand zero sum thinking, but I don't think the reason I've been successful in business is because the government gave it to me or the government made it for me. I mean, the government allows infrastructure to exist. They support rule of law.
Yep.
But and so that creates a platform, the United States of America, that we get to operate in, rather than being in the Ukraine where they have civil wars and no rule of law, or other places where you don't have that. It's very hard to be successful.
Yep.
So I think we have an infrastructure a playing field that the government allows us to participate on, and we do need to support that.
Yep.
I don't mind being taxed. I think California is a little excessive,
Yeah.
but I pay it.
I
to live
agree.
here.
Yeah.
But I also don't. I think what the government offers is hopefully the equal opportunity for people to participate in the economy, and then it's up to us to actually create wealth amongst ourselves.
Yeah, the government's not the reason you've had success.
No, I mean, I give them credit for the playing field.
Yeah.
I don't give them credit for how I play the game.
Well, exactly.
And so I think
Well
that's
said.
that's a huge difference. So what we were doing at the Acton Institute was educating a lot of religious leaders on how free market economies work and how a free society ought to behave, and the idea being that if what you're doing is creating the fabric, a social fabric that allows freedom to flourish, then your whole organization, your whole community is better off. The economy's healthier. People can actually make decisions. I mean, when somebody's putting a gun to your head, you don't really have the ability to make a moral decision.
Sure.
It's just either a bullet or whatever they want you to do.
Exactly.
Right? And so I think the idea of choice is really all about being free to choose. Is literally about giving people the liberty in a context of a healthy enough social structure where you can have freedom and people don't go crazy.
Absolutely. In terms of politics, don't you think people right now are just way too far right or way too far left, just kind of unreasonable, or what would you say?
Well, yeah. So I mean, I do business all over the world, and I see a lot of different governments. I think, in my opinion, the political spectrum, left and right, is everything from totalitarianism, which is total control of your life, even from economic, social, political, religious ideas, to total anarchy. Right, that's the real spectrum.
Yeah,
total chaos to total control.
100%.
I think our government, the United States of America, is kind of sits in the middle. Both parties, frankly. If you were in a parliamentary system, I think two conservative elements of a parliamentary system are what they call typically Christian Democrats and Social Democrats. They're kind of on either ends of the center of the party. I think that's what our Republicans and Democrats are.
Yeah.
I know in the United States we tend to polarize that, but really, if you look at the policies that they pass, pretty conservative.
It's a good point.
Even Elizabeth Warren, or Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie Sanders might be on the Canadian side of that equation versus maybe like a more hard. I don't even know what Trump is. I think he's just a populist. But if you look if you go a little bit, you could say Rand Paul maybe is further on the other side of that, where he's saying, hey, maybe we should give people more freedom.
Yep.
My simple theory is we should try and keep the government out of our bedrooms and out of our wallets as much as possible.
100%. Yeah. My thing is, I think I'm socially liberal, fiscally a little more conservative. I just try to think what's the most reasonable solution at all times. And
I mean, my question at dinner parties has been, look, I'm not really interested in a conversation about Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump or Obama versus whomever. My question is, how do you build a country again? Because right now nobody can even have conversations. We have two parties that can't even work together.
Exactly.
And I think that's really unhealthy. I'm actually kind of a fan of having some kind of a conscription for kids out of high school or college, where for a few years you got to do something for the country side by side with people from a totally different place than you came from.
That's cool.
I don't care if it's like an environmental corps or join the military or teach America or find something.
Yes.
But work with people who maybe are different than you, that don't come from the same socioeconomic background. Work together on a problem in America, help create a solution, and realize that we're all in this together.
Exactly.
We all have to live here at the end of the day.
How do we make that happen? I like that idea. That would open a lot of minds, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
you're forced into that.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is how do you have that work with the government managing it? And then
right.
Usually it turns to shit. But
exactly.
So I don't know the answer to that, how you do it, but I think we need a new generation that's really committed to building a country again. And right now we seem to have a boomer generation that's dedicated to tearing it apart. Yeah. And I'm Gen X. We just don't give a shit. So
that's fair.
That's what people say about us. But I that to me is like the ultimate question: is how do we truly rebuild this place? So that we're going somewhere.
Yeah, and with technology and everything changing, I mean, I think there's got to be different answers, right? Whatever the answers were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, are not going to be the same solutions now.
Yeah, no, and technology is a tool. I think the question is, how do we build communities? I mean, part of the reason I love living in Laguna is you actually have neighborhoods, and our kids grew up here, and there's 2 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school. you get to know
I
everybody.
really want to pick your brain because I want to pick everyone's brain who sits in that chair and who I meet in life, period. But when you say that made me think too, because there's a somewhat of a chance I'll end up living here with a family one day. So is it a good place to live with a family?
I think it's great. I mean, our kids really, I think, thrived here. You know, we lived in town. There was at one point we looked at moving into one of the gated communities, and we had known a lot of people that live in them and love them. And I asked my kids what they thought. They were in elementary school at the time, and they were like, "Dad, there's no waves here. You know, there's nowhere to surf." Like, we were living on Brook Street at the time. Yeah. And so we stayed on Brook Street, and I think we're thankful we did. We've moved since then. But, you know, the idea was, you know, we lived on a street. We had we started our own 4th of July parade that they still do.
That you started that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like Howard Hills and I and
nice.
Some other folks on the street. And, you know, we had a half pipe in our backyard, and kids were always over at the house skateboarding or surfing or, you know, doing things. And Halloween's a big deal on Brook Street. So we always threw a Halloween party. It's just great to live in a community where you know your neighbors, you hang out, you get along, you figure things out. And I think that's kind of a microcosm of what I'd like to see our country become, which is a place we all live, and maybe we don't agree, but we figure things out.
But we get along and respect each other.
And respect each other, exactly.
So on that point too, like, you know, living in a community is definitely important. What would you say though, in terms of raising kids when you're already successful? Were you already pretty successful when you had kids?
I mean, we had some rocky roads. I had some really...
But so that they're not privileged, I guess, kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, by the time they were in elementary school, we were doing really well. I think, you know, one thing is we've always been fairly involved in different nonprofits. I was on the board of a coffee nonprofit that works with rural poor coffee farmers in high altitude areas.
Nice.
And I was chairman of that for like 13 years. Growers First, great organization. And so we would do trips down to Oaxaca, Mexico, and be up in the mountains with different indigenous people growing coffee, you know, on small farms. Yep. Went to Honduras. We went to Indonesia. Lots of different places where you're living and eating with people on dirt floors and doing what they do, and you realize really quickly that regardless of their skin color, the language they speak, or what gods they believe in, you know, we're all made out of people underneath it all, and we all kind of want the same stuff. And really, whether you have a dirt floor or marble, you can be just as happy with either one.
I agree.
And I think for my kids, they kind of grew up going to all these strange places and meeting all kinds of nice people and interesting people, and realizing that no matter what the news says about a place, you know, generally it's actually not you discover what it truly is rather than maybe what people are saying about it.
What the headlines are.
Yeah.
And they probably also saw you working hard, and that probably helped as well, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think, you know, when we were growing up, one of my funniest stories was part of how we promote excess is we just, you know, one of the reasons we went to Amway is the company that I had come down here to operate was really beat up financially, and I worked with a team there to fix a lot of their e-commerce, and then said, you know, look, you guys they had powders and bars. They were doing low glycemic sports nutrition, low sugar sports nutrition at the time. Yep. And I was like, you know, I owned a Red Bull distributorship as part of a .com that attracted a lot of people to our business. You know, maybe what we ought to do is think about an energy drink, but do it different than Red Bull. You know, I think I'm not a fan of differentiation for its own sake in a brand, but I think when you're building a brand, the question is, are you going to do something that's going to create a new category? So energy drinks existed, but we created a whole new space so that we were completely different from the competition.
What would you say that space was? The no sugar space?
Yeah, zero sugar, you know, really kind of functional beverages. I mean, we called ourselves energy drinks because that was a hot category, but really we were going for functional beverage rather than the sugar crash.
Because this is actually tasty. Like Monster, I don't like the taste of that at all. I mean, for whatever reason.
So you know, I agree. So we, you know, my theory was there were some big gaps in the customer experience. We gave away so much Red Bull that I'd see people's responses. They'd basically suffer through a can, in my opinion, to get to the energy at the bottom of it. Wow. Right? And then you kind of take off and crash. Yep. And so our theory was, look, what if we made it taste great, got the empty calories, the sugar out, so you don't feel guilty drinking it. And then use a mega dose of B12 rather than just sugar and caffeine.
What's the positive of B12?
So B12 is really boosts your metabolism. Okay. And so it helps you burn calories you probably stored as body fat or from food you've eaten.
From eating a big burger from Solani's.
Right. Yeah, which is pretty good.
Yeah, so good.
And so the idea is that you get a longer lasting, healthier energy from that, metabolizing things you've already stored or that you've consumed. And like, for example, if you have chronic fatigue, a lot of times you'll go to a doctor, they'll give you a B12 subcutaneous injection, right? A little shot of B12.
Yep.
So we put about the same amount of B12 in 4 of our cans that you'd get in an injection from a doctor in the same pharmaceutical grade.
Wow.
It's harder to digest through your stomach than it is if you take it subcutaneously.
Yep.
But people notice a difference. 5 Hour Energy copied our B12 formula.
Could you patent it at all?
No. I mean, the way you do beverages is typically trade secrets. So you have a formula that you protect.
Yep.
But there's nothing stopping anybody from doing something in Coke and Pepsi, right?
Yep. Were you pissed or flattered when you saw that they did that?
No, I find it's hugely flattering to me. I'm never really concerned about what other people are doing per se. I think when people clearly, kind of mimic you, that should be a huge compliment. And I think there's plenty of money to be made in the world. There's plenty of customers to reach.
Yeah.
I don't really believe in fighting with people over their customers. I like to bring new customers into a category, and that means you got to be creative. You got to create a white space or a blue ocean.
Yeah.
And
were you referring to that book, by the way?
A Blue Ocean Strategy?
Yeah.
I mean, I've read the book.
Not yet.
It's
on my
a
list.
good book. I mean, it's basically just talking about don't throw yourself into the middle of a competitive set.
Gotcha.
Create a new space.
Yep.
There's a lot less competition when you create it, and if you're the first mover in a new space and you attract other people to the space who are competing with you, they're all talking about you, which means you're winning.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So for me, that's always kind of been where I've tried to play. I never wanted to steal Red Bull's customers. I always thought Red Bull was a great brand, a great company.
Yep.
I wanted to bring new people into the category.
Interesting. And do you feel like y'all did that? You probably ended up stealing some, maybe not on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, there's always brand trade-offs.
Yeah.
But for us, one of the things we noticed prior to Amway is we were doing a lot of testing in grocery, and when we would sample and sell in like a Safeway, we would convert 20% of the foot traffic to purchase a case of our drinks, where only 8% of all consumers were even buying energy drinks at the time.
Wow, that seems super high.
Yeah, so I think people tried it and liked it.
Yeah.
We were selling effectively to mom, person buying, right? I mean, it could be male or female, but we call that person shopping in a grocery store mom.
Yeah.
They're buying in bulk for the home typically.
Yep.
But I think what we realized was, look, mom needs energy. Mom likes the way these taste. There's no sugar. It's healthier than the alternatives.
Yep.
She might buy it for herself, but it's not a pink can of Tab. Like it's not branded we really marketed to the hard to please teens, but then sold it to mom, who made the decisions for the home.
Interesting.
She made the decision. She bought the cases. She brought it home. But then once she's home, the approver is actually the family. It's dad, it's the kids. So if she brings a case of it home and everyone's like, "Oh, mom, this is great," it disappears. She's been successful. She'll come back and get more of it.
Yep.
And that model is really what we succeeded with. And so I think we brought when we have 70 and 80-year-olds who drink our drink and love them. We've got lots of people over 40 who drink them.
Yep.
The hard to please teens.
You got a 29-year-old that loves it now.
Yeah, well, we've been sponsoring, for example, like the Brook Street Surf Contest for for over a decade.
Is that one of the big moves that you've done, sponsorships? 'Cause I've seen that a lot with like Rockstar Energy drinks.
I mean, we definitely do sponsorships. We do them differently, I think, than the other brands. Because we have a kind of a different platform and a direct selling model, we've tried to do sponsorships that really speak to the people that we work with and the people they're trying to reach.
Yep.
And so it's generally less about competition and more about people who go out and do adventures, as a group.
Cool.
And so we have some really interesting athletes that we've worked with over the years and told some really fun stories. We've made some movies and had a lot. I mean, it's just been it's been a lot of fun.
So it's a lifestyle company to an extent too, right?
We were the first. We were the first lifestyle brand at Amway, and I think for us, it's been all about helping people do more than they thought they could, and we express that globally through mountain biking, surfing, skiing, snowboarding, hiking. Getting out there with your friends and doing something that scares you a little bit.
Is that I do this on purpose. I try not to look people up too much before, so it's really like I don't know that much about you, so I can learn.
Yeah.
But going through your profile a little bit, it looks like you are probably, safe to say, correct me if I'm wrong, a super adventurous person. So, I mean, have you always been that way? Do you do a lot of action sports and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it depends who you compare yourself with.
Fair.
So compared to the average human, I'm probably much more adventurous than the average person.
Yep.
Compared to Laird Hamilton or Mark Healy or,
I know Laird, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've surfed waves that are, probably the biggest waves I've ever surfed are 20 to 30 feet.
Well, that's
but I'm not proficient at it.
Yeah.
I'm scared to death out there.
I mean,
and I don't do it that much. Yeah, I've done it a few times. It's really scary.
What was that like? Yeah.
It was like riding mountains. I mean, it was a Second Reef. My brother and I paddled out at Second Reef Sunset on big wave guns. We had the right equipment, and I rode 2 waves in 3 hours. And they were calling it 10 to 15 foot in Hawaii, which is like 20 to 30 foot faces. So it was,
oh my gosh.
For us, it was pretty big and scary.
Did you legitimately feel like at any point like, shit, I might die? Like, or you don't let yourself even think that way? Or?
I don't really think that way. I think a lot more like, boy, it could get really tough out here. This wave could hold me down for a while, and I might want to come up, and it might not let me up as fast as I like to come up.
Yeah.
And I've surfed some bigger waves in Indonesia and some other places, and
is this early in life? Is this like now?
I still do it. Yes, was surfing like in Indo like probably 5 times last year, and surfed some really fun waves. I think it's more of a mindset. Well, you said it there. It's a mindset that separates the best from the rest. I'm not the best at anything, but I really enjoy getting out and scaring myself and pushing myself probably further than I should sometimes and finding that edge.
But it sounds like you've had some very real success in business and probably personal life. Would you say part of that is because you are willing to go way out of your comfort zone? Or
yeah, I mean...
Or it sounds like you're comfortable in any of these situations.
Yeah, I mean, well, I definitely get scared, just like a lot of people do. I think that's where real courage is when you push yourself beyond what you're comfortable doing. So I think... I'm constantly trying to do that in business and in, when I'm outdoors, in a lot of different ways. And I think that's where you continue to grow. I mean, it's easy, especially if you start making some money and you start saving money or putting into other things where it's generating income, where you don't really need the money anymore, where you could start to stop taking risk. And you do have to manage risk. I think it's good to learn how to manage it. Definitely gotten better at that over the years.
Do you think why there's that, not to cut you off, but there was one point where you maybe took risks that were too big? Or
yeah, I mean, I went bankrupt once. I went into Chapter 13, which is where you get protections, you can pay off your creditors.
How old were you when that happened?
I was in my 20s.
Okay.
And I had some initial success. I'd started a biotech and pharmaceutical company in Venezuela with a friend. And
interesting. How do you even get into that?
I had a Venezuelan friend who had a lot of connections, and we started out. I would fly down and bring. I would buy Micron computer chips here and fly them down there and carry them into the country, and we would get cleared through customs with the military.
Yep.
And then you could arbitrage them because there were big price discrepancies between U.S. pricing and Latin American pricing in computer chips back then.
Interesting.
And that led to more opportunities. The government offered to give us pharmaceutical and biotech licenses, which at that point, Venezuela that's when Caldera was president before they have all the troubles they have now. And so we were using, if you brought things into Venezuela, you could then go from there with free trade with the Andean Pact into the rest of Latin America.
Yep.
And so we had some really interesting opportunities setting. We were importing early NiCad batteries and rapid assay tests and different kind of emerging technologies that were really advanced for Latin America. But
so did you so you saw that need, like it was just clear to you and no one was doing it? Or?
Yeah, well, we kind of, through the early arbitrage things we were doing with computer chips, we found more opportunities down there and more relationships. And so that was going really great until there was a coup d'etat and the government was overthrown and banks get frozen, and then one of my partners embezzled most of the money, and I had taken loans to to make that happen, and I still had to repay my loans in the U.S., but couldn't get access to our money down in Venezuela.
Shit. And he went missing?
And then, that was gone. So,
wow.
So then...
What was that like in that moment where you went from, I guess, having a little bit of money to just being dead broke?
Yeah, to being negative,
super negative.
Yeah, losing. I didn't own a house at the time, but I could have bought a house with what I lost, and then having to pay that back. And I think, what the interesting thing at the time was I called my dad to see if, he might be able to help me. And he said to me, I think maybe you need to figure this one out. And I think, that was really good. I'm happy he did that because if he had bailed me out, I might not have learned much. I might have taken too much risk. I didn't even realize that you could be in a market where there's a coup d'etat. I kind of took for granted this platform we have in the U.S. where you have a stable government, rule of law, things like that, where in places like Venezuela or Ukraine or Indonesia, a lot of places you can bribe your way to success, or you can steal somebody's company. There's things like that. So
absolutely,
it's a lot that you take for granted when you're in a place like that you shouldn't. So it was a good lesson for me, and definitely now when I look at opportunities around the world, we think long and hard about where we're going and who we're going with, and how we get in.
Did it feel like the end though in that moment where you're like, shit, I gotta declare bankruptcy, like I'm over, or were you like, this is just a step?
No, it was super hard. It was. I mean, it's not only. Part of my thing was I always feel like when my word is my bond. When I make a commitment, I pay it back.
Yeah, I love that.
But at the same time, I had a young family. I had to figure out how to feed people. I had to figure out how to pay rent. I had to figure out how to do a lot of stuff that I didn't have any money to do it with. Yeah. So you have a combination of creditors on your back and trying to earn an income, and so I had to scramble and took a job in technology at the time. I took a job with a value-added reseller selling software, but the that led to other opportunities, and I did pay off the debt. We did get out of that debt.
Wow.
Ended up being fairly successful in the tech sector.
In sales particularly?
I was in sales, and then I ended up building a consulting services company. So I had to learn project management and first you learn how to sell things and grow a company, then you'll have to learn how to manage it.
So was a lot of that learning, was it really on the job?
It was on the job. I hired a guy to run this consulting business that there was a value-added reseller. So back then it would be a company that was reselling networks for network computing, which was a new idea, PCs and networks. And then they had a services division that was losing money. I came in to help them with their sales, and the owner said, hey, would you take this services group and figure out how to make it profitable? Yep. And so I started building up their services, selling training and software services, and pretty quickly realized that I needed some help because I didn't really understand how to drive that business. Yep. And so I hired a guy to effectively be my boss who had a lot of experience running consulting services. And smart. He made me, he said, look, you can be, his name was Al Corker, really great guy. He said, David, he said, you can be Simon the Likeable for the rest of your career and you can do well. You can just be a great salesman. But if you really want to become successful, you need to learn how to manage the organization. Manage a project, from the time you sell it through its completion and make sure that it's profitable for the business, then manage the profitability of the company overall. Yep. And that was a really good lesson for me. It was hard. It was stuff I didn't like to do. Like people talk about what's your gift or what do you I think it's important to know what you love to do, what you're passionate about, what you're good at. I also think it's important to learn things that maybe you don't like to do so that you can round yourself out and be more valuable. So
do you think it's not only necessarily finding the Al Corker, it's the guy who knows that one thing that you might not in the moment, but it's also learning what he already knows? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean he cared enough about me to tell me to understand, to give me a 360-degree review on things I needed to work on. Yeah. And then give me the tools, or point me in the direction of the tools and the education I needed to get in order to be able to accomplish that. So we had kind of a rule: 80% of your time was applied, you were billing, and then 20% of your time you were developing yourself. And he gave me the time and the resources to go do that. And we kind of did it together, but he really encouraged that, and that allowed me to become a lot better at what I was doing and to get to a point where I could run a business and not just help them sell and grow it.
Have you done that kind of throughout your career? Always been like, I know what I'm really good at here. I'm also going to learn here, but in addition, I'm going to find that person who's really good in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I've never thought I was the smartest guy in the room, fortunately, and so I've always...
You are right now.
I don't know.
No, you are.
I've always tried to find people who had a lot more experience or were smarter or better than me at the things that I knew I needed help with, and that's there's a lot of people that you meet, especially in bigger organizations, who they rise to a point where they're I'd like to say they rise to their level of incompetence, so they can't go any further.
Interesting.
And they start hiring people who have less skill or less ability than they do.
Huh.
And they kind of, it's like an ego thing where they have to, if somebody's better than them, it really challenges them.
They're threatened.
And they can't have open conversations, and it really wrecks their careers.
Yeah. That's very common, isn't it?
It is. Because it's kind of counterintuitive to try and find better people than you.
Mm-hmm.
And to recognize that there are people who are better than you that can really help you, and to let people challenge you, and to create an environment where it's healthy for people to challenge you and to disagree with you, respectfully, but also kind of aggressively, where you can, I think the way you find the best, in my opinion, the way you find the best ideas are typically through aggressive and respectful dissent, where you kind of, you break things down, you kind of hammer them out. I mean, scientific method's all about hammering out ideas. Here's my proposition, and then the rest of the scientific community tries to beat it with a hammer and see if it stands up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you do it respectfully. You do it with with the best.
Yeah, you don't
intentions.
get personal, and
yeah. But I think that's ultimately how you find the best ideas, and don't always do that perfectly. I have an ego too, like everybody.
Yeah.
But I try to be aware of that, and we try and practice that in the organizations I've been part
So
of.
you kind of let people around you say, "Hey, I disagree completely," or "I agree," whatever they think.
Yeah. But then they also have to back it up.
Exactly. You can't just disagree. Disagree.
You better have some facts.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I also think that there's not a lot. You shouldn't. People need to deliver at the end of the day. At one point when there was a lot of political issues at one of the organizations I was with, one of the guys I worked for said, he said, look, if you outgrow everybody else who's bitching about something, whatever the political issue was, it won't matter. It's just noise.
Yeah.
Because growth solves almost all your problems.
Exactly. Always.
So, I mean, you can also create a lot of problems with growth, but when you're driving revenue in an organization, the politics generally won't get in your way.
That's a good point. So have you found, have there been certain points in your career where it was harder to build, like when you hit a certain revenue mark, or
I mean, I think there's different types of organizations and different types of incentive programs, and bigger organizations have more politics, and you'll start, when you see people complaining about growth and getting away with it, it's generally a good indication for me that I'm in the wrong place. What
about complaining in general? On that note, that kind of makes me think, what's your thought on that? You seem like, if I had to guess, I would say I don't know you real well yet, but if I had to guess, you're probably not someone that complains a lot. Is that safe
I try
to
not
say?
to. I mean, I don't. My simple theory is, we went through a tough spot when we first moved to Laguna. The company that I moved down here to turn around was really in a dire situations before it's while we were figuring out the excess thing. And our neighbor happened to also be one of the pastors at this little church we went to in town, little church by the sea. And I don't think they knew how tough things were, and then somebody let them know that it was a really tight spot. Like, I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And she said to me, she said, you don't really show that very much, when things are tough or when things are stressing, should be stressing people out. And I said, well, I don't think we get any extra credit for complaining. I think, the best thing you can do is, even if something's freaking you out and you're upset, is to focus and to put your head down and to get shit done.
Yes.
Freaking out, it's a waste of energy. Complaining is a waste of energy. I think it's okay to express concern or criticism of things that are going badly, particularly if you're doing it with a solution.
Don't you want people to complain, though? Because then you're going to sell a lot more excess because they need that energy.
I'm tired. Yeah, well, let me help you. Well, I think for me, it's I don't mind people. Like, I always, one of the things I say a lot is, nobody gets paid to state the problem. But I don't mind people stating the problem if it's coming with a solution behind it.
Exactly. That's what they get paid for, to solve the problem.
Right. So, like in consulting, when you sit down with a big client, you know, in the first 30 minutes of a meeting, you really got to figure out what are the problems that they're willing to pay to solve that you can make money helping them solve.
Mm-hmm. Is that what you always try to do? You just nail in what are the real problems here, so then I can find the solution.
It's a comment. So it's the problems, but it's the ones that they're willing to pay to solve. Because they have a lot of problems. Some of them they aren't willing to pay to solve.
That's a good point.
And then the third, so it's a Venn diagram. Problems they're willing to pay to solve. And then the third circle is problems they're willing to pay to solve that I can make money helping them solve.
Exactly.
Right? Because that's where we're going to work together. And so, yeah, I mean, for me, whether it's getting paid money or just adding value to somebody, I think the question is somebody's complaining about something, you know, what are the problems that I can help them with where it helps me and it helps them.
Yep. What do you do to stay calm and to stay focused when shit is stressful, or whether it's stressful or not? Do you have any practices that help you?
Breathe. Yeah, I think meditation and breathing are two of the biggest things. The slow breaths, it's called box breathing, but, you know, breathing in 4 or 5 count breathing in.
Do you know Wim Hof by chance?
I know who he is. I don't. I have a friend of mine here in town. Tom Hale is a cold water swimmer and has done a bunch of Wim Hofs. He's going to bring him here at some point.
Oh, cool!
But he's done some Wim Hof.
Would you be opposed to trying that?
Actually, no. I'm actually. I told him when he. Yeah. It hasn't worked out with my schedule to do a Wim Hof.
No, I mean right now, if you want.
Just doing a.
We do it. Yeah, we do it on the podcast sometimes.
Do you do? Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, you just happen to bring it up. That's something we do.
So you do the Wim Hof breathing?
Yeah, it's like. So my friend told me about it. It's a friend who I highly trust. He's successful and just always smart guy. He's on his shit and. He's like, hey man, I found out about this breathing exercise that just really helps you focus and get calm. And I saw him do it, and I was like, it's kind of funny looking. But then I did it, and legitimately, it's been the best meditation.
How do you do it? Show me how you do it.
So yeah, here, I'll turn it on. It's like a YouTube video. Just listen to it. It's a bunch of deep breaths in and then out. It's like a 5-minute series.
So what's the YouTube video called?
Here, I will look it up right now. It's like Wim Hof breathing exercise.
Okay.
Something like that. But if you want, we can do this
right
now.
Yeah.
Cool. I will say it's more effective. I don't know if this is proven, but I think it's more effective with your eyes closed and you get in like that zone.
Okay.
You know what I should do? I literally just thought about this in the moment. I'm a prankster. I should do this one time when I have a guest, and like right when our eyes are closed, like have someone come in like a clown suit or something.
I hate clowns.
Are you one of those people?
Yeah.
Are you scared of clowns or just hate them?
Probably both. I mean, when I was like 3, my dad took us to the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus.
Yeah.
And a clown came up to me and just freaked me out.
Damn.
And it's just stuck with me. I mean, I don't know if it would really freak me out.
Yeah. So if we film again,
one of my least favorite things. Yeah,
fair.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, very fair. Yeah. All right, cool. So yeah, it's I'll play the video. Essentially, it's just like deep breaths in and out, and here we go. And then it's holding your breath at the end.
Right.
Fully in. Letting go. Right on. Fully in. Letting go. Not fully out, just letting go. But fully in. Letting go. And once again. Come on. Don't hesitate. Give it. Deeply in. Letting go. Deeply in. Letting go. You're going great, man. Deeply in. Letting go. Deeply in. Letting go. Deeply in. Letting go. Deeply in, letting go. It's about changing the chemistry right now in your body. Deeply in, letting go. Deeply in, letting go. Nice one. Feels good, huh? Hey. Give it fully. Take him in. Letting go. Take him in. Letting go. Take him in. Letting go. No hesitation. It's about changing the chemistry right now in your body. Times more. Deeply in. Letting go. 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 Okay, 5 times more. Deeply in. Letting go. Deeply in. Letting go. Deeply in. Letting go. 2 times more. Letting go and stop. Just stop. Witness. Without air in the lungs, you are able to stay much more than normally. Why? Because we change geochemistry. Carbon dioxide went out, O2 went up, filled up all the cells, and the pH levels go up. Then we are able to tap into the central nervous system, and at the end we got the brainstem, and that's the place of the pineal gland, hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and the pineal gland makes the secretion of adrenaline in dangerous situations. Normally we do not get into it because of our shallow breathing. But this is the way to get into the most primitive part, the reptilian brain, without many difficulties, and fend off bacteria, getting better into the endocrine systems. In minutes, and you're still on. That shows that the capacity to fill yourself up with oxygen is a lot more than we normally use. And as we do not use it, we are not making a use of the full capacity of our physiology. Now we found out we got a different layers, and we never use it. And this is the way to learn to use it, to tap in and back into the primitive brain, into the endocrine systems, immune systems, the way nature has meant it to be. Everybody is able to do it. Whenever you feel the urge to breathe, you don't need to force. It's only learning how to oxygenate the body and all the cells. You're going great, man. Nice one. Feels good, huh? When you feel the urge to breathe, you breathe in fully and keep it for 10-15 seconds. Then that's one round. Fully in and keep it. Letting go.
So that's it.
Well, that's cool. I haven't done his method. I've done a little bit of the shallow breathing, but I've never done that whole thing. That was cool.
Yeah, doesn't it feel like even more relaxed after?
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like if I was like I'm gonna hopefully have a UFC fighter on soon, hoping to get it scheduled. I feel like I want to ask him this, that if you were, especially before a fight, that would almost be the best thing, to just go in so calm. Because don't you think you execute best when you're most calm?
Yeah, I think so, and I think even like box breathing, where it's 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, 4 seconds out.
Are they deep breaths in? It's like that?
Yeah, I mean it's actually not as intense. I mean, like when you're compacting for freediving, you're doing that too, where you're making a small, and you're starting by filling your gut and then filling your lungs, so you're kind of compressing as much as you can in, and you inhale, exhale, and then you're doing that. So you're trying to lower your CO2 levels and increase the oxygen that you bring into your system.
Well, it's a stupid question, but so freediving, then you don't have any sort of tank or anything with you? It's
just breath hold, apnea diving. And there's guys who are really great at it. I that are going hundreds of feet down, and a guy that we used to sponsor, Mark Healy, still a good friend, is a famous big wave surfer and free diver. He's a Lululemon ambassador, among other things, but super heavy guy, rides massive waves, and he was one of the first early guys to paddle in at Jaws, in Maui.
Wow.
Piahi, but he, when you watch his breathing exercises, or there's another Scandinavian guy, Stig Severson, I think his name is, Steverson. He has a whole video series called Breathe, and it's all about learning to compact air, and then going to a different place in your brain when you start to feel like you're running out of air. I go out to a party in high school, say hi to all my friends, and it's your brain. You just go to a different place.
Yeah.
The other thing too is even just like closing your eyes when you're underwater. When you start to feel like you're running out of air, closing your eyes, you almost feel like you get another lung of oxygen.
Really?
Because I think it just takes your mind off of all the stimulation, allows you to calm down, relax.
Yeah. How long do you typically stay underwater? Is it?
I mean, it varies, and it depends on where I am and what I'm trying to do. And I think maximum for me is, minute and a half, 2 minutes. So it's not
pretty
not
long
huge.
though.
Not huge. It's enough.
Yeah.
For what I'm trying to do. But there's a lot of people. I mean, it doesn't take long. Anybody can do that. It doesn't take long to get to even like 3 minutes.
Really?
You can do that if you did like a week of free dive instruction. Pretty much anybody can get to 2 or 3 minutes.
Yep. Or you're never doing this alone though, are you? Is it smart to always have someone with you in case?
So part of the reason I don't do, I do free dive by myself, which isn't really recommended.
Does your wife? Do you have a wife, right?
Yeah, I do.
Does she like that, or?
It's okay because I don't push myself real hard when I'm doing that, and that's why I'm not trying to do mega breath holds and things when I'm doing that.
Yep.
So I'm doing very normal breath holds, not going super deep on those dives.
Yeah.
For me, like the deepest I've typically go like in a place like if it's really clear water in the Med or someplace or Tahiti, 80 feet, maybe 100 feet is the maximum that I like to go. Yeah. Just because you start to get into a realm of shallow water blackouts beyond that, or if you go for much longer breath holds, and where that's where your CO2 levels expand as you're coming up, and in the last few feet you black out. And if you're not with somebody, then you can easily drown.
Oh, you literally black out?
Yeah, so you start getting like tunnel vision, and it'll just...
Yep. Wow.
And so that's why you typically want to free dive with another person.
Do you have weights on to get down faster?
I often wear weights when I'm free diving, especially if you're wearing a wetsuit, which it's mainly so you become neutral. Once you go past about 40 feet, it doesn't matter what you have on, you'll become negative. Okay. And you'll start dropping. But... the reason you typically wear weights is like when you're spearfishing or doing most free diving around here, you're just not usually going much more than 40 feet deep. Yeah. In Catalina it's clearer and there's better viz and you might be going deeper there, but here just all the reefs are typically within 30 feet. So at least the places I've gone so far. Yeah. So
Do you have like a morning routine kind of on that? And I'm wondering, like, is that ever like, do you get up and you go diving, or what's your?
Typically, I mean, for me, my older son goes free diving with a buddy of his in the morning more than I do when he's home. I tend to do free diving, usually when it's clear and on a, kind of under good conditions. I don't like to free dive when it's real beat up.
Do you have a consistent though? Every morning you have to have an apple or whatever it is. Or?
Well, so I tend to get up. I love drinking green tea, Japanese green tea like a sencha or a matcha.
Why is that? I
think it just helps me boost my metabolism, kill my appetite. Okay. I also like intermittent fasting at this stage of my life. It's just I do better not eating in the morning.
I've been actually trying that. What hours do you typically go?
I'm not super legalistic about it, but I usually try not to eat from dinner until lunch. Okay. So, I try and have an earlier dinner, and then I try to not eat until noon, 1, 2 o'clock, something like that. And if I drink green tea in the morning, then I just don't get hungry. And you feel good energy.
Interesting.
So that seems to work for me.
Yeah.
Everyone's a little different.
I need to try that. I think part of my problem is I smoke marijuana sometimes, and that makes me hungry.
Yeah, get the munchies. Yeah.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I want to get back to the morning routine, but since we're on that.
No, I've always been, I was joking with some friends in Michigan because they legalized like a couple of years ago. My family's Dutch, so we're Dutch Americans, live in California. If I didn't smoke marijuana, something would be wrong with me. That's true. But when they legalized in Michigan, I said, hey, congratulations. I've been fighting for legalization in Michigan since 7th grade.
I love it. My thing is, I used to be against weed growing up because I was super into baseball. So I was like, all right, I can't be successful in baseball, or I can't be successful in business if I go down that path. And then I realized, first of all, it's healthier than alcohol, and there's a lot of very successful people that smoke. And now I smoke weed, frankly, almost every day, but I go to the gym twice a day. I work hard on my business. Yeah. I try to live a very balanced life, and I think I can stay on point whether I'm, smoking or not. And
so I don't know. There's also, I think these days too, there's, I stopped smoking for a long time. Like in college, I stopped for a while. because at that back
It's an
then,
interesting time to stop.
well, yeah, it was like my
College.
junior year, and I got probably a little too into it, and
Yeah.
took a month off school, which turns out was a pretty bad idea, and then had to catch up at the end. So I gave all my stuff away, and I was getting to a point where I was just smoking, eating a burrito, and falling asleep. And
Was it a good burrito at least?
Yeah, it was a pretty good burrito.
That's good.
Yeah, but I think so for me, it was getting in the way of everything I needed to do, and it was a good time for me to put it down. But then it was when we were living here. I got introduced. There was a lot of people who were cultivating. This before it was legal, but cultivating. There were sativas, and there were options.
Yeah.
And I learned that I didn't get the same effect when I smoked. I could smoke a sativa lightly and feel like it's better than a cocktail. I was still alert, didn't necessarily get the munchies, and could function. Versus if I smoked an indica, it was like
Indica couch.
Indica couch, right? Yeah. So I think everybody's different. Figuring out what works for people is really important, and I'm a fan.
Yeah.
And
does it help you focus, be more creative, relax when you're a little stressed to maybe even think clearer? Or?
Yeah, I like it just to take the edge off. Some of my days can be kind of stressful, and I think that it's helpful to take the edge off the day without having to have a cocktail.
Yeah.
Because I've never had a problem with drinking too much. I just don't seem to have an addictive personality.
Yeah.
I definitely would have been addicted to some things if that was the case.
Yeah.
And so I'm lucky that way. And I think people have to be careful with that. But I think for me, it's a nice alternative to cocktailing. Yep. And definitely healthier. You don't have to smoke it. You can do a lot. You can take it a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I don't. I enjoy a J once in a while. But I guess the other thing that I've noticed is like when we surf big waves, like in Tahiti, I noticed it the first time, or other Indonesia, when it's big hairy waves where reefs are shallow and you can't really mess up. Blazing a J is really helpful. It just settles you, calms you down, but you can still go out and get the work done.
Yeah.
And and I've had a number of friends in sports that it's a helpful tool for them. So I think obviously they're not like getting completely baked, but it's like a functional high that just settles you down. And you look at all the pharmaceuticals people go on now, whether it's Concerta, Ritalin, Adderall. There's all kinds of things that people are using to figure out their chemistry set, and everyone's chemistry set is different. And so I think for me, experimenting has been helpful. Yeah. And I'm fortunate that I don't get addicted. I don't seem to get addicted.
So have you tried other things to potentially help just with focus?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big believer in psychedelics.
So what about? Because I'm glad you said that, because I had a friend who recently brought up. I'm probably pronouncing this wrong. I think it's ayahuasca or something like that. Ayahuasca. Yeah. And I mean, the way she described it sounded pretty reasonable, but it also sounded a little cuckoo. So I don't know. Like,
I haven't done ayahuasca. I mean, it's definitely on the bucket list. I've always thought that there's like thin places in the world where whatever's like the string theory, there's a singularity that expanded, right? That created the universe we live in. I think that's pretty widely accepted. Yep. And Penrose and Hawking, Stephen Hawking and Penrose, when they did the math on how an expanding universe would operate, discovered that for the expanding universe to exist, there have to be at least 11 dimensions, and we exist in 4 of them, right? Length, width, depth, and time. And so they said, in the first 10 to the 30 seconds, there are these extra dimensions, these 7 other dimensions at least, that expanded and tightly wrapped around the ones that we're in. That's kind of the foundation of string theory, which is the grand unified theory of everything, how general and special relativity, how big things move with a lot of gravity, versus quantum mechanics, particle physics, how those two models don't work together. Yep. And so when you get to like really infinitely small and dense things like the singularity or like a black hole, scientists struggle with what models do we use. And so that's why whether it's Stephen Hawking, who's dead now, or
he died somewhat recently, right?
A few years ago, I think. Or I've interviewed Brian Greene, who had a Nova series.
That name sound very familiar?
He had a Nova series. He wrote Fabric of the Cosmos, Elegant Universe. He's a really popular string theorist.
Sounds like you've met a lot of cool people as well.
I've been lucky to meet some really interesting folks.
Yeah. That's what I'm. I mean, I've met some cool people in my life before the podcast, but the cool thing about this podcast, it's afforded me a way to meet all sorts of new people as well. So
have some great conversations.
Yeah.
So anyways, I guess one of my simple theories, I was raised religiously, but I try not to be too religious these days. But I still believe that there's more to life than what we just experience in the 4 dimensions we inhabit, at least that's...
I would agree.
It's an opinion I have.
Yeah.
I think if you put it in physical terms, it makes it easier for people to kind of grasp, to bridge or grasp. And so I think there are some what I would call thin places in the world where maybe there's more connections and to these other dimensions, whatever exists out there. And I kind of think Machu Picchu could be one of those places, and you can do ayahuasca ceremonies with in a controlled environment with a shaman.
Have you been to Machu Picchu?
I haven't, but that's one of the places I thought would be an interesting place to give it a shot. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're incredibly open-minded. I mean, because you didn't even hesitate. You're like, that's on my list, ayahuasca.
Yeah, I mean, I've done plenty of psychedelics for a long time. So,
really? Is it, because I actually haven't. I mean, full candor, I smoke a good amount of weed, but never done a psychedelic. And I definitely am open-minded to it. I would do it. I think 100% I would need to be with people that I really trust.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
a
big piece.
Sure, I think I wouldn't dive head first in. I think I kind of dip your toe in the water and
like a little mushroom.
I mean, I think mushrooms are like a really it's legal in some places now. It's legal in
Denver, I think, or they're trying to make it legal?
I think it's legal. It's legal in Denver and Oakland.
Okay,
and I think it's on the ballot in Oregon for the whole state.
I was just in Portland, by the way. Beautiful there.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's an amazing city. Yeah. So I think that's like a place where most people have good experiences. They're using psilocybin, which is the active ingredient in psychedelic mushrooms.
Okay, psilocybin's what it's called.
Yeah, they're using that to treat PTSD and depression and with psychiatrists. But I don't think people should self-treat that stuff. I think you see a doctor for that. But but they're having really good results with that. And when I was in university, I wrote a paper. I took a course of what was it called? The Chemistry of Social Drugs was the name of the class, and I got a straight A. And one of the things that my emphasis to study in that class was LSD. Because I had done some in high school and in university, and when you actually dig into the research on LSD, it's pretty interesting how it's been helpful to a number of people. And
wasn't this like the LSD capital, Laguna Beach?
Yeah, so Orange Sunshine. So there was a group here in the late '60s called the Brotherhood of Eternal Love that lived in Laguna Canyon. And they had a shop in town called Mystic Arts that eventually burned down, but it's before my time, but I've read. There's a book called Orange Sunshine. There's a documentary called Orange Sunshine, and in fact, a local artist made the soundtrack for the documentary. But
nice.
But there was this group of guys they figured out that they figured out how to get to Afghanistan and buy hashish direct from the source. They would buy Land Rovers, drive them there from Western Europe. Pack the vehicles with hash and then ship the vehicles back here and then sell the hash. And they had this little commune thing going, and so they were making a ton of money. They were importing most of the hash into the Western United States and selling it, and then they took the profits from that and put it into really high quality LSD that two guys who had worked for this famous LSD synthesis, this guy Owlsley. These two guys learned how to make LSD from Owlsley, and in fact, they're in the documentary. They both went to prison.
Sounds like a great name for a guy making LSD, Owlsley.
Yeah. So Owlsley was the guy who was making a lot of the LSD during the early days of the electric Kool-Aid acid tests with Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters. And,
I don't know about that.
There's a really good book called The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test.
Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test?
Yeah,
nice.
by Tom Brown. Why am I forgetting those names? Anyways, really great. It's a
interesting,
great book. It's about Ken Kesey, who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and was an early kind of adopter of LSD and created this bus. They painted psychedelic colors, did these big trips across the United States, a bunch of hippies, and it became this kind of national movement.
Has the stigma, do you think, is the stigma changing on LSD or only on weed, only on marijuana?
Well, I think cannabis, now it's called cannabis, right?
Yeah, right. What do I even call it now? Is it cannabis?
No. I mean, that's I think I think in general the stigma's diminishing on cannabis.
Yep.
CBD is, I think, it's almost stigma free. I mean, there's still some people like, old grumpy people who don't like CBD,
but there's no psychedelics in CBD.
There's none. Yeah, and it's one of the, if you think about what it actually appears to be doing, and there aren't claims on it yet because it hasn't been tested enough, but it appears to be for a lot of the things you would take like ibuprofen for, which is not great for your stomach. You can use CBD and get the same or better, a lot of times the same or better results without tearing your stomach apart. So it appears to be really helpful for inflammation. It appears to be really helpful to offer relief from different sorts of pain, and it works differently for different people. But I think there's also people who are having trouble sleeping that have anxiety. The New York Times had this great article where it said there's a drug for every generation or for every time, and CBD seems to be the drug for our time, where people have more anxiety. People are living longer and doing more action sports. They have more chronic pain. There's with anxiety comes difficulty in sleeping. It just seems to be a really,
that makes sense,
natural, healthy, beneficial supplement without a lot of side effects. And I think that's why it's getting such popular embrace, because it just look, you don't have to take Tylenol PM, or you don't have to take Adderall, or you don't have to take it can help you with a lot. It seems
with
to
less negative effects.
It doesn't appear to have a lot of side effects, and it does seem to be really beneficial to a lot of people.
So you got in the CBD business. Do you see yourself ever getting in the cannabis business, or not necessarily?
I'm personally interested in the cannabis business. I doubt that under the Excess brand. I mean, I can't speak for. We sold the company, so I don't own it anymore.
When did you sell the company? By the way?
2015. And then I ran it for 3 years for Amway. And
till 2018.
Yeah,
sold in 2015. We're still there till 2018.
Yeah, and then I stuck around for. I've been helping them for the last year or so.
Oh, nice. The transition.
Yeah, transition, and I still will represent the brand publicly and stuff like that, or when we do launches. Or
is it your baby? Do you still look at it like your baby, or not necessarily?
It's really not anymore. I mean, it's I still love it. I'm happy that we built it. I'm happy that Amway has it. I mean, they've done very well through the acquisition. We did well through the acquisition, so I think everyone did really well. My theory on kids is you set them free. And
fair.
And so I think that's what we've done with Excess. That's what I did with my own kids. And
do you remember the moment you thought of the Excess brand? Like before there was any brand, like before this cool logo, before you knew what ingredients were there. Do you remember the moment where you just started thinking about it? It was literally just an idea.
I think for me it was looking at these low glycemic sports nutrition products that this company, this Southern California company had, and
you had the Red Bull distributorship.
So I had in the late '90s. I was helped start a company called Nonstop Net that I ran sales and marketing for. Okay. And we raised about $60 million in 2 rounds. We were managing internet data centers, co-location facilities. Wow. And we had a way of proprietary way of speeding up internet, delivering faster speeds and more uptime, so that people didn't go down as much when things were more unstable. Yep. And kind of a boring business, like the plumbing of the internet.
But there's a lot of money in the plumbing of the internet.
There is. So when we would go to Comdex or some of the big trade shows, I built a 2-story trade show booth and put a Red Bull bar in the center of it, because after your second day in Vegas, you're hungover and you're tired.
Smart.
And so everybody.
Were you the only 2-story booth?
We were definitely the first.
See, I'm noticing a pattern. I feel like you were first in a few things. So
my question is,
vision.
So you walk into Comdex and everybody's at the same level. Yeah. I was like, well, why don't we build it 2 stories? There's plenty of space. Yeah. And so we could have the Red Bull bar on the first floor and then a meeting space on the second floor. Yep. And so it would give us more. People were doing different visual cues. Trying to have flags or different stuff. Yeah. But we really kind of went. I think we were the first one to go 2 stories. Wow. And so we just put a lot of showmanship on the first, to attract people to our booth and give them a reason to come over and say hi. And we could filter through the people who came, and we could have conversations upstairs with people that we want to talk to.
So it seems like throughout your career, you've always tried to see, like, what's the next thing? How do I be the purple cow, that different business? You're never thinking, all right, they do it this way, so I'm going to do it this way. It's more so they do it this way, so let me do it this way. Something very different.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about, there's a really famous Wayne Gretzky quote where he talks about, I don't go to where the puck is. I'm going to where the puck's going to be. Yeah. But the story behind that's, I think, even more interesting. The reason Wayne Gretzky knew where the puck was going to be, which is, I think, the real question. Well, how the hell do you know where the puck's going to be? When he was growing up, there's a great documentary about, and probably more than one, but there's a documentary that I saw recently where he would sit as a kid and watch professional hockey on TV, growing up in Canada.
Oh yeah.
And he had an ice rink on his notepad of paper drawn out, and he would just draw where the movement of the puck on the ice.
Wow.
Every game. He would just draw it with a pen. And at the end of the game, it'd just be pen marks all over. But I think tracing through the movement of the puck in a professional hockey game gave him tremendous mapping skills.
Wow, I never heard that. That's interesting.
And he also played a lot more hockey than his brothers were all pretty good hockey players. He
put in the work.
Put in the hours.
Yeah.
And when he wasn't playing, he was tracing pucks on the ice, watching professional hockey games.
Wow.
So he was studying it. He was watching how people played. He was watching where the puck was going, how they were moving the puck. And then he was, playing a lot. And the funny thing is he was smaller than everybody else. He wasn't the fastest skater out there. Mm-hmm. And so he had to differentiate, and the way he differentiated was he wasn't chasing the puck, and he wasn't trying to get in the middle of a Czech festival.
And then he became Wayne Gretzky, Hall of Famer, I believe. Yeah, I don't really follow
probably
hockey
the greatest.
much,
he's like the Michael Jordan of hockey. He's
right?
the greatest player ever.
Yeah, then you have guys like Jose Altuve talking baseball. He's a short guy and arguably best hitter in the league, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's because you can't change some things about yourself.
Yeah,
but you can figure out. I think I've always thought like the best way to do anything. It's not from a grand strategy, but it's by rolling up your sleeves, getting involved in an industry, and then looking for where the opportunities are. Mm-hmm. Like what's wrong here? What's wrong with this picture?
Yeah.
Right. Red Bull. Well, hey, great brand, amazing content. They've really differentiated. They did a lot of things great.
Yeah.
I just thought, there's a customer experience here that isn't for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And the no sugar. I mean, just seeing all these points.
So how do we create Red Bull for everybody else?
Yeah.
For everybody who doesn't want a Red Bull.
Interesting. And isn't a lot of it like one thing that I feel like I've noticed throughout life, and I'm not nearly as successful as you, I'm younger, but like one thing that I think I'm getting more as I get a little older is a lot of it comes down to just recognizing patterns, right? Once you recognize patterns, that's how you figure out what does and doesn't work, very simply put.
I think so. I mean, I do a fair amount of private equity work now, and when you're investing, particularly in private equity, it's a little easier than venture because there's patterns you're looking for.
Yeah.
But you're looking for 3 years. I mean, the classic patterns everyone's looking for, so you have to differentiate there too. But the classic patterns are 3 years, triple digit growth.
Yeah.
The scale we're working at right now, we're looking for things that are typically over $5 to $10 million.
Yeah.
But, under
certain niche or
consumer goods.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll bring in bigger partners when it's a bigger deal.
Yeah.
But the big popular deals are pursued by a few guys with massive banks, and so that's not usually where you're going to be successful.
Yep.
So I think one, it's thinking about what are the patterns where we can compete and be successful, and then I'm always thinking about and where do we go from here? Like where does this lead us? Because if we're successful here, other people are going to be coming in. So what's next?
Exactly. Seeing where the puck's where it's going to be.
Yeah.
Right?
And always trying to by the time people start entering the space you created, you're hopefully building out another new white space that you're leading everybody else into. Because frankly, being there by yourself isn't that great either. Mm-hmm. My friend Glenn Rodgers says, being early is almost as good as being wrong.
I like that.
Versus, timing's really important.
Yep.
Getting a lot of people competing in the space eventually is a good idea. That's when there's a lot of value created.
Yep.
And then moving on to a new space that people follow you to is the next thing. So
absolutely.
Those patterns are important, and I think reading consumer trends in a way that because everyone's reading the same consumer trend information, and my big question isn't where are consumers going, it's where are the white spaces that they haven't figured out they want to go that we need to go next, right? Because if when you're looking at trend information, I think marketers get confused about this. You're basically putting dots on a chart, and then you're drawing a line through that chart and saying this is the trend line.
Yep.
The trend line isn't real. The dots are real. The dots are real data points that are typically a consumer doing something.
But you're guessing what that trend line is.
Well,
that what you're saying?
You're basically saying, hey, look at all these dots. So then, therefore, the trend's going this way.
Yep.
And then what the assumption is therefore, if it's here now, it's going to be there in the future, right? It's going to keep going that way.
Which isn't necessarily right.
And what I like to say, look, okay, that's true if nothing changes. The assumption is they're going to continue to go that way. but what if we got those dots to move a different direction? What if we changed behavior? And so I think the big question is, how can you create an exotic destination that those dots know they want to go to yet, and then give them a compelling reason to go off course and go a different direction and come to the white space that you're going to go build.
Yep.
And that's really hard work.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who promise that haven't delivered it. I've certainly failed at trying to do that. I've also had a lot of success doing that.
Yeah. Probably more success than failure, or more importantly, the success was big enough that it outweighed the failure.
I'd say the success is success has been big enough and sustained itself well above the failure points.
Yeah.
But you have to keep having little failures in order to find the place where you're going to ultimately succeed. So, so
I love that point. Not to cut you off, but that's just like something that, I definitely feel you on that. Do you feel as though every little failure along the way has helped you
absolutely
become more successful?
Yeah, I mean, there's Carol Dweck has a TED Talk on the growth mindset. She's written a bunch of books about the growth mindset.
Carol Dweck?
Dweck, Dweck.
Okay.
Yeah, she's actually pretty famous in education.
Okay.
And the whole point is that anybody can become a great learner. The environment and what you believe about yourself are the two most important characteristics.
Whoa.
So, do you have a fixed mindset? Do you think that you're only as talented as you're ever going to be and you can never change and grow beyond that?
That's a bad mindset.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to be stuck, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get angry if somebody challenges you.
Yeah.
If you fail a test, you're going to think you should do something else and not learn from it.
Yeah.
Where a growth mindset would say, oh, look, I got an F. I've got so many opportunities to learn. This is great.
Right.
This is going to be amazing. What a huge learning opportunity I'm going to have. Because I know I can eventually get all these answers right. I'm just going to have to take more time and study harder and get some more help.
Exactly.
And I think, not every teacher or school creates a growth mindset.
Good point.
There's a lot of teachers in schools that, focus on who got an A and who got an F, and bad kids get Fs and good kids get As.
I love that we're getting on that topic, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on school. I mean, with where everything's moving, do you think that there should be more vocational schools, schools that are teaching people how to make money in tech, or do you think we need to keep the old system of, because you have the brand of, like my grandpa, he went to Harvard, right? And that back in the day was probably huge to be able to say I went to Harvard. Now it's still big, but how important, I guess what I'm saying, is having the brand name still in that actual education versus maybe just real life or a vocational school.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think first of all, college educations are horribly expensive.
Yeah.
And I think, one, I would say taking out student loans to get an undergraduate degree, should be done as minimally as possible if you're going to do it. I don't think it's for everybody. I do believe that we should have way more vocational education. I don't even know if we have it anymore. It seems like it's almost gone.
Right. Yeah.
And, you look at Laguna Beach as an example. Both of my boys, I had worked for a friend, Jack the plumber. He's a great plumber. When you do plumbing, you learn carpentry, pouring concrete, electrical work, and plumbing. So you learn a lot.
That's actual plumbing, not the online plumbing this time.
Yeah, there's real plumbing.
Yeah.
Because I said, look, you should go work for somebody that isn't me. You should have to punch a clock. You should learn a lot in the process. You should do it with somebody who's fun. And working hard can be a lot of fun. And
rewarding.
Yeah, it's really rewarding. And plumbers in Laguna Beach, make more than some doctors.
You're kidding me.
Oh, no, for sure. I mean, because it's hard to find good plumbers,
Fair.
And people pay. I mean, the amount that people pay per square foot in this town, now.
Yeah. Has it? Because you've been here obviously way longer than I have. I've been here for like 3 years, and Laguna, you've been here, you said, what, 20 or so? Is that so?
Yeah, I mean, since 2002, so I guess it's less than that.
Has it gone up like crazy, though? I mean, in this time?
Yeah, I mean, the real estate values have gone up, but even building costs have gone up. I think when we built the house we live in now, we did basically tore the whole house down to sticks and rebuilt it. I think dollars per square foot in Laguna were, probably averaged about $800 a foot, which is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But that's just, Laguna's an expensive place to build things.
Yeah.
And the cost of labor is high, and everything's really expensive. Now, the cost per square foot for building, and depends what you're trying to do, but can easily be $2,000 a foot.
Wow.
Which is horrifically expensive.
Yeah.
There's people still building houses, nice homes for $300 a foot in the middle of the country, right?
Wow, yeah. Very different.
Or less. Yeah. So it's just, it's orders of magnitude, and that's why a trade here is really valuable, especially if you learn how to manage a project and learn how to be efficient at it and do great work. It can be a really great way to earn
That's an interesting point, that there are ways to make a lot of money that people would never think. Like, no one would ever think you're going to make it rich off plumbing, but the reality is there are very real ways to make good money that you wouldn't think.
One of my friends in high school, his dad lived in Chicago. His parents were divorced. Dad lived in Chicago, was a plumber in Chicago. Lived in a high-rise, was very successful, retired to Florida. I mean, did because same thing, you know, you're in a high-rent neighborhood.
Yep.
You're a professional, you know, plumber that does great work and leaves the place better than you found it.
Yeah.
People want you. And
exactly.
You get a great reputation. You get a lot of business.
And then what would you say are some of the, like, principles to gaining, you know, wealth? Because I've had the pleasure of meeting, you know, people like yourself who are much more successful than me, who I'd like to be at that point at one point. So I'm always trying to learn, how do I get to that exact level? If I had to guess, one of the things is obviously being able to save properly, invest properly, and seeing opportunities and taking risks. But with all that said, what would you really say to just anybody that's looking to kind of build? I mean, what are kind of the core principles that you think are important?
First of all, I think where you live matters. You know, I've always tried to live in places where I was not the biggest fish in the pond.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off because you're now preaching in the choir. Like, that's one of the main reasons I live in Laguna. I rent here, so I do decent. I guess I do better than a decent amount of people out there.
It's expensive to rent here.
Yeah, it's expensive to rent here. But on the other hand, I'm nowhere near a lot of people who own the $20 million homes right there. In my head, I think I will be one day, but I'm not there now. But it's motivating to be around that.
Well, I think also when you're around people like that, you start to understand, you start to figure out how you can get to that level, right? And, you know, I think, so one is, I think, being in an association with people who can do things like that. Yep. Otherwise, it's really hard to get out of a place where nobody thinks that way. And you basically get around people who think differently, right? I think the other piece is, you know, work really hard. Roll up your sleeves. I've always worked a lot of hours. Even when I was in college, you know, I had jobs. In the summers, I'd work 3 jobs. My dad was a doctor. He's a head neck specialist. It's not like we were poor or anything, but he expected that we would pay for our room and board going to school, and you know, that wasn't cheap back then either. And so I had to make enough money to cover that, and it was great because it just, you start to realize, you know, if you need more money, sometimes you just need to work more hours. And but you also start to meet a lot more people and see a lot more opportunities if you're actually, you know, if you're present in your work and you're trying to put your best out. One of the best things I saw with my older son, he was working for, you know, Jack the Plumber, and then he went on and he was a busboy at a restaurant in inland a little bit, like a brew house.
Nice.
And the last day he was going in, he said, "I'm going to go in a little early today." And I said, "Okay, well, how come?" And he said, "Well, you know, Jack taught me that we always leave wherever we work better than we found it." And he said, "You know, the break room at work is really crummy. It's dirty. There's junk all over the place." He said, "I'm going to go in early. I'm going to clean up the break room and leave this plant there so that when people go on break at this place where I work, they'll actually have a nicer experience than they did before I came here."
Yep.
And that was the last thing he did when he was on his last day at work.
Wow.
And I said to him, "You know, I don't know how many lessons you learn as a busboy. I think it's good work. It's good to get your hands dirty and maybe learn about customer service.
Yep.
But leaving you know, the lesson you learned from the working for a plumber that you're applying now at this place where you work, if you keep doing that everywhere you work in life, people always welcome you back."
That's well said.
And so I you know, same for myself.
I like that a lot.
I've tried really hard never to burn bridges, to maintain relationships, keep doors open. Don't always stay where I am.
Yeah.
But I believe in graduation without divorce. Like, just because someone leaves your organization doesn't mean they're bad people, or that, you know, there won't be an opportunity in the future.
Good point.
And in fact, there was when I built up one of the software companies I was at. We sold to a large software company.
So you sold a few companies.
Yeah. So there was it wasn't a big sale, but we sold a consulting firm to another consulting firm that then got acquired by Computer Associates, which was a big, at the time, second largest software company in the world.
Wow.
And I worked for them for a year before we started Nonstop.net. And
when was that? Was that in the 90s?
That was 97, 98, I think.
Oh, right. Like, as Amazon's being founded.
Yeah.
That's an interesting time.
It's when a lot of the .coms were really starting to pop up in the Bay Area.
Yep.
CA gave me I had some Fortune 100 accounts like the state of California, Kaiser Permanente, the Gap.
Oh, those are huge.
And, yeah, those are big accounts and
Yeah.
fairly complicated sales. And I was good at that. I sold 17 times my quota that year.
How did you, not to cut you off, but I'm curious because you say complicated sales, because I'd be curious if you have any advice to me or anyone that's listening in terms of closing some of those complicated sales. Are there just simple tactics to it?
A couple things. I think one is you got to show value right away. Map the account. Like we did a lot of account mapping. So in a big account, the question is, okay, who's the decision maker? Who's their approver? What motivates and drives them? What's their actual goal? Early on, I thought that everybody wanted to hit home runs. You learn really quickly in big organizations.
They're cool with the singles and doubles.
They don't want home runs. Like home runs are dangerous in a big organization because you could end up making a lot of extra work for somebody else that could get you fired.
Interesting.
So we had code names for different types of people. We'd call managers who were risk averse brown shoes.
Interesting. Yeah.
Guys who, man, they didn't want to pop their head up. They didn't want to call attention to things. They just wanted to have a safe, successful project.
Exactly, and just get by.
Yeah, and so when you're talking to them, you're talking very differently than to an up-and-comer in an organization who's trying to rocket through the company. Usually there aren't a lot of those people at big companies.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They don't stick around too long.
Right.
So it's just you're kind of trying to understand what they want, not what you want, and what their problem is.
Yes.
And then identifying those, kind of and making them feel really comfortable that, like one time when I first got Kaiser Permanente as an account, IBM had failed twice with their global services to roll out desktops to doctors. Doctors don't like to go to training.
I believe that.
They don't like, they were using mainframes prior to that. So dumb terminals in their offices. So somebody puts in a PC. If they don't know why that's there, they'll just take it out and put it in the hallway.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how does this help me? Their job is to practice medicine, not to use computers.
Exactly.
So, if you don't cater to the doctor and give them instant value, then there's no reason for them to have that new device in their office. They'd rather have the thing that they know how to use, right?
Is that the core even on the smaller sales then, would you say,
I think
too?
that's
It's just
anything.
value, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think in any relationship, really. I mean, good relationships are where you add value to somebody else. Good conversations are where you ask a lot of questions.
Yep.
And where the other person feels heard, where you build common ground, and where you're exchanging value.
Yeah.
And I think, nobody likes to sit in a conversation where the other person's talking at them the whole time. Nobody likes to be in a relationship where the other person's taking all the time.
True.
Right? Shel Silverstein wrote The Giving Tree. Right?
I haven't read that yet.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's
I don't know how to read, so that's why.
That's okay. Yeah, it's a lot of pictures.
Yeah, good.
But there's a reason he didn't write The Getting Tree, because nobody wants to read that
good
book.
Point.
Right? Yeah, so I think that's just a good life lesson, and it takes discipline to do that, because it's not how we're naturally geared.
Yeah.
So I think
So do you do that in your personal life too? You surround yourself with people that you all add value to each other, because that's what I try to do.
I try very hard to do that.
Yeah.
And I try and give more value than I get.
Yeah.
And I also get. I don't always ask for as much as I should. Sometimes need to get better at that at times.
Yeah.
But I think I've gotten better too at understanding where the boundaries are and who I'm working with. And I think half the question is, at this point in my life, do I want to do this?
Yeah. Of course.
Because if otherwise, why would I do it?
So when you're deciding if you want to do something, does it come down to happiness? Is it, because obviously you're at a point where business is more than fine. You're good. You could technically retire if you wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't really like the idea of retirement.
I believe that. Like, if you were to ask me, what do you think I think on that, I would have said that.
Yeah. Well, I just don't know what I would do. I mean, and me with a lot of free time in my hands all day probably isn't a great idea.
Yeah.
I can make some bad decisions. So I think staying busy is a good idea, but moderating that in a way where I've been a little too busy the last 4 years, and I'm trying to moderate that a little bit more.
Too busy in one area, like business wise?
Yeah, I mean, I've been traveling for about 10 months a year.
Wow.
With all the markets we're in and all the stuff we've been doing.
Wait, for Access?
For Access primarily, yeah. Just we've had so much growth and so many people wanting my time.
Yeah. And
I love our distributors. I love the people we work with in different markets that it's hard for me to say no.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to shift gears this next year and do things differently. But for me, it's I guess it's really about is the where I'm investing my time taking me in a direction that I want to go? So it's being kind of deliberate about life.
Yep.
Reflecting about, like, I'll reflect, how did things go the last 3 years? The sale was great. Now what? Now what comes next?
Yep.
Do I really just want to keep, being a face for a company as a contractor? There's a point where it's kind of, I'm not seeing where I'm really developing my life anymore.
Yeah.
And so that'll probably start to change.
Because you want to feel that constant growth.
Yeah, and I want to have, I do want to have some control, and I want to be able to add a lot of value and feel like that value, there's mutual agreement on what that is. And I think, the problem in a big company is post-acquisition, you don't have equity anymore.
Yeah.
So if I still feel like I'm contributing dramatically to the growth and taking more risks than other people in the organization are, but I'm not being rewarded for it, then as an owner would be, then I'm like, okay, why am I trying to push this entire organization to do things it doesn't want to do when I don't own anything here? I'm just frustrating them, and now I'm starting to frustrate myself.
Yeah.
And that's where it's a healthy time to probably, thank them for all the opportunities we've had together and move on to the next thing.
Exactly. And so that's taking up, it sounds like, the majority of your time business-wise, but then you're also obviously doing real estate and the equity funding. And
yeah, so this last year, Aaron Rodgers started a private equity fund with Byron Roth from Roth Capital, who's local here, one of the larger boutique banks or investment banks, and Nate Robbie, he was with Roth before. They started a fund called RX3, so it's 3 R's, Rodgers, Raby, and Roth.
Yep.
And it's a lot of influencers, so a lot of athletes, a lot of celebrities invested in it. And Aaron asked me to be on the board and to invest, and so I invested and I'm on the board.
Nice.
And so we partner with some of the bigger funds like the TSG Group, Chuck Esserman, which is one of the largest funds, private equity funds. It's $2.5 billion. And
you have to say no big deal after you say that. You have to say $2.5 billion, no big deal.
It's a big deal.
No, that's why you got to say no big deal.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, he's one of literally one of the most successful private equity investors in the world.
Is he based in Newport or something?
No, he's in where's Chuck? He's based. I think he lives up in the Bay Area. He lives in the East Bay, I believe, in Orinda or something. Yeah. But it's guys who are consistently hitting over 40% year-on-year growth, which is really hard to maintain, especially as you get to scale. So there's a lot of talent, a lot of smart people that work with them. Yeah. We get to co-invest because we bring influence and a little bit of money. And so it's been a lot of fun. I get to look at a lot of great deals. We invest in some. And
what's that look like? I mean, is it literally just you're getting a file, you're checking out your computer, or are you having a Shark Tank presentation in front of you?
I think Shark Tank's kind of a lot of bullshit.
I know.
I would never.
It's entertaining.
It's entertaining television. If I was a startup, I would never take money from those guys.
Yeah. Why is that?
I just don't think they offer great value. I don't. Their terms are terrible. That part I don't think is very realistic.
Yeah, the terms are tough.
Yeah. It's usually people who haven't raised money before that are going for their first time, and so maybe it is a good deal for them, but it's not how I would raise money.
Exactly.
But we look at it. I tend to go in and sit in deal meetings, and in a less Shark Tank way. We listen to the pitches, we dig into the details. Yeah. We try and do it in a very friendly way. Yeah. Because part of the deal is maybe you don't say yes today, but maybe in the future you want to continue the conversation. So for me, it's kind of the growth mindset. It's not saying no, it's saying not yet.
Exactly. And does that happen fairly often where you're not saying no, but it turns into yes later?
Most of the time it's not yet.
Really?
And some of the times sometimes you see something you're like, how can we get involved? Yeah.
But is the not yet more often become a no or a yes, or it so varies?
That varies. I mean, I think I think not yet can a lot of times mean that company doesn't survive, and then I didn't say no, but they weren't able to come back. Yeah. There's one me and my Glenn Rodgers, we have a house at Ruby and Ocean Way, and he's at Pearl and Ocean Way.
Oh, nice.
Good friend of mine, but he
wait, is he related to Aaron or just
no different spelling actually? Okay. No D in Glenn's, but he and I looked at one brand called Life Aid that we passed on. They were selling like energy drinks to golf courses, and I was like, that makes no sense to me. And instead of staying in conversation, we kind of just passed and let it go. Yeah. And they're like $40 million now. One of our friends, Alan Karp, who has Karp Riley, another big successful fund. It's invested in them, and they changed their model, and we didn't hear their new pitch, and I probably would have gotten involved in the new pitch.
Wow.
But because we didn't stay in touch, we kind of missed that one.
Yep.
We're doing some other stuff with them now, but I think there's the growth mindset's a really important thing in that world, especially in maintaining relationships.
Yep.
And not insulting people, and trying to just, even if you see a dumb idea or an idea that you don't understand yet, not saying that, and letting people, giving people the space to fail if they don't want to take your advice.
Yeah. Have you always been big on that kind of maintaining relationships? You always kind of understood the importance?
I've tried really hard to do that.
Yeah.
From family to, I have family relationships that I think sometimes are even weird. Like, I'm like, why am I meeting with this, great uncle or aunt, or why am I, I'm big on nostalgia. I remember
Same.
things as a kid, and I like to keep those relationships open. And even if I can't always go see people, I like to just try and stay in touch.
Do you have an organized way of doing that? Because that's one point now I've thought, should I be more methodical about how I stay in touch with certain friends and family? Or?
Well, I think it probably varies. I mean, I try not to do it with any end in mind with a family member. I certainly don't want to be doing it for an economic reason.
Oh yeah.
I have ended up working with some family members, and that's been a lot of fun. But I've tried to keep the outcomes separate from the work there, because otherwise it can mess up a personal relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, with me, I've always been big on, I'm way more about the personal relationship. So even if I feel like so-and-so is close to me, might be able to help me in some way, I could help him or her, I try to, more often than not, just take into consideration that the personal relationship matters so much more.
Yeah. I think that's healthy. I mean, especially if it's a purely personal relationship, then, and business relationships are different, where there's, you might like somebody, but it's primarily around a business objective you're trying to hit.
Exactly, that happens.
But I think deep respect for people should be fundamental. Even people that don't behave the way you like them to, or you don't like.
Yeah.
I think being aware that they make their own. You can't change somebody else's behavior.
True. So you're saying it's good to even respect people that don't necessarily live the way that you like, or
I do. I mean, there's a really there's a book that when Satya Nadella took over Microsoft, he made everybody read, called Nonviolent Behavior. And the whole point of it is that making, that you should try and be as objective as possible in evaluating what people are doing or what they're saying, rather than make judgmental statements. When you make a judgmental statement, it's almost like an act of violence. And so saying somebody's stupid, or that's not a good idea, or I don't like that idea, it's, rather than make a judgment, sometimes it's better to say, I don't understand this, can you help me understand this better? Or you're doing something, here's what I like about you. You do all these things really well. I'm seeing you're doing this, and that doesn't seem to fit with who I know you can be.
Yeah.
Why are you doing these things?
Yeah.
And I find a lot of times when you see behavior that seems really irrational, like sabotage behavior in a big organization, a lot of times people don't even know they're doing it.
Really?
I think it's subconscious. Like maybe they learned it at home.
Yep.
And that's how they practice, that's how they react to things.
Yeah.
And so just calling attention to it in a way that is non-threatening and effectively non-violent, non-judgmental, allows people to at least maybe have awareness of it.
Yeah.
Or, so...
do you think that kind of helps you too in like personal life and in business, is maybe kind of just being, I mean, you come across at least as very like not a judgmental person, someone that's just kind of, you're driven but also laid back. Are you always like that to an extent?
Not always. So. I mean, I think one of my what's come with that for me is I've done a lot of writing throughout my life. I've been edited by editors. I've been so I'm used to being edited, and that's very direct and very candid. I'm used to, it doesn't bother me when somebody has a critical comment that's non-judgmental, right? I take that as an opportunity to improve.
As long as there's facts with it, right?
Yeah, well, as long as there's facts with it and it's constructive, right? Like there's a solution behind it, or there's here's what we need to do next.
Yep.
What really bothers me is when somebody is critical or complains or states a problem without a solution.
Yep.
I have a hard time understanding why somebody is doing that. Like, what's the point of that?
Exactly.
What are you trying to accomplish? It
Nothing
just seems
positive
like
comes from that.
You're just bringing a big bag of shit into the room, throwing on the
smelly ass shit,
right? I mean, on my Facebook page, I do this. I do bring up controversial topics. I'm very happy to have healthy debates. I'm very happy to have people disagree. Mm-hmm. But like I had somebody come in and started attacking somebody else personally, and I just said, look, we don't do that here. Yeah. You can apologize and you can continue in the conversation. Yeah. But either I'm going to delete your comment, and either we're going to change behavior, or I will ultimately block you because we don't tolerate that here. Exactly. That's not how adults talk to each other. You can't walk into my living room, which is my page, and take a shit on the carpet. Exactly. That's not okay.
Yeah, there's a restroom for that.
And I think it's right. Do it in your own home, preferably. And I think it's healthy to set those ground rules, and it's maybe healthy sometimes to let people know that that's what they're doing, or that's what it appears like they're doing to everybody else, even if they don't see it. And that there are boundaries. Yep. And maybe some people haven't learned that. I mean, I was lucky to go to a great, two great 4-year colleges and learn the fundamentals of critical thinking, and was on the debate team, and you learn that there's things you don't do, right?
Being on the debate team, that had to have been because
there are real boundaries there, right?
Oh yeah. Being on the debate team though, that's one thing. If I had to say, like, if someone said you have to pick something you regret, I don't know if this would be the first thing I think, but I guess if I tried a lot of things, it's one thing I didn't do that I think I would have maybe been pretty decent at. I don't know.
It's all right. I mean, here's the thing about debate that drove me nuts was it's great if you want to go into law or something. The way that debate really works itself out these days at a collegiate level is, you're building up these decks of evidence, and then you're debating a topic, and a lot of the debates come down to weight of evidence, and which serves, if you want to be a trial attorney, that'll serve you really well. Yeah. If you don't want to be a trial attorney, like you'd rather be a constitutional scholar, for example, or work in think tanks, just throwing shit tons of evidence at somebody, burying them in evidence, or who can bring the most evidence to the table, isn't that interesting to me. I'm much more interested in like undermining assumptions, getting to the root of the discussion,
thoughtfulness,
and more importantly, getting to what's the truest thing we're trying to discover here, not who can win the debate.
Interesting.
So I got a little frustrated with, I would say, like the problem of rationalism. Like, the modern philosophy was the height of rationalism in the 1600s, and that was when people thought, Leibniz, Spinoza, Descartes, that people are rational animals, and that's what makes us different, and we can figure things out. We make the idea, and this is like 60s advertising. The assumption is that people have perfect memories and make rational decisions.
That's not correct.
Which is, I mean, realistically, what we've learned, I think, since then, is that people fundamentally make emotional decisions, and then they rationalize them, and that our memories are horribly flawed, and we don't remember very much, frankly.
Interesting.
And I ended up sitting next to Elizabeth Loftus, who's one of the preeminent memory scholars in America. In fact, we were both flying to DC. I sat down next to her on a flight, and we started a conversation, and she was on her way to get inducted into the National Academy of Sciences for her work in memory.
Wow.
A really fascinating conversation.
That'd be a fascinating person.
So at the time, what's her name? Martha Stewart was just, had just been prosecuted for insider trading.
Pounds of weed. Yeah.
Well, for insider trading. Yeah. And Elizabeth Loftus said, "Do you know why Martha Stewart was found guilty?" And I said, "Well, because she lied under oath. She was guilty of perjury." And she said, "Yeah, but do you know what the perjury was?" And I said, "No." And she said, Elizabeth Loftus got on a plane, her private jet, was going on vacation with a friend. Mm-hmm. They stopped to refuel. They drank a bottle of champagne from, I guess, New York to Texas. Had to refuel in Texas before they continued on their trip. Yep. So she drank a bottle of champagne on a vacation. Gets off the plane, takes a phone call. Is apparently told she should sell some shares in a company she owned by somebody who had some inside information. Mm-hmm. Sells the shares. Gets on the plane. Completes this was a couple years before her deposition. Mm-hmm. During the trial, in the deposition, they said, what happened when you got this phone call? And she said, "I don't remember." And so what
what Martha Stewart said?
That's what she said. I don't remember. Yeah. I don't have flawless memory. I don't remember. Yeah. The prosecution basically said, "You remember, you're lying. That's perjury." Elizabeth Loftus was supposed to be the expert witness that the defense was going to bring up to say, "Look, that's not how memory works. Yeah. You don't have perfect recall. It would be very normal for someone not to remember something that happened 2 years ago while they're on a way to vacation, after a bottle of champagne,
right?
On a few-minute call in between all these other things going on.
Yeah.
It'd be perfectly normal for somebody not. The defense didn't call Elizabeth Loftus up because they thought it was such a ridiculous argument. They let it go.
Really?
And that's ultimately what
she got charged
what
for.
she got charged for.
Wow, interesting.
Because we were talking about memory, and I had just been through some depositions, and I was like, man, it's funny. You think you know what happened 2-3 years ago,
yeah,
but you have so many things that have happened, and then these days now there's all these email trails.
Yep.
When you're deposed, you think you know what happened. There's a narrative maybe you built in your head, and then the emails come up, and you're like, oh wait, maybe that's not exactly what happened. Maybe my memory isn't flawless. And she's like, well, one, your memory isn't flawless, and
nobody's.
There's a lot of cues that help you remember things. Like you probably, if your childhood memories, you mostly remember from pictures that you see.
Yep.
Like there's pictures maybe your parents have around the house.
Yeah.
Those are the memories you have that cue maybe other memories that surround it. But like you can't remember what you did on the third week of grade 4.
No way.
Right?
No way.
And so, most people can barely remember their teachers' names.
Yeah, true.
So memory's, I think, a very fickle thing. It's a lot hazier than we think it is.
Do you believe in like some of the pills that we can take to help with memory? I've never tried anything like that, but
I'm sure there's supplements that can help us with brain chemistry.
Do you think a lot of it's bullshit though?
Well, no. Well, for sure. When you take a stimulant like caffeine, right, or if you take Adderall, Concerta, any of those, Ritalin, those are proven to enhance concentration, coordination, and memory. One of the things that we know is that if you're studying in that state and you want to take a test, you should also take a test in that state. Your recall will be better when you're in the same state.
Yeah.
But you definitely have better focus and retention in learning.
Do you believe in that? Because obviously you're all about hard work. Do you believe in taking something like an Adderall so you can outwork the next dude?
I drink green tea in the morning.
Yeah, you're saying that.
I think you have to be careful with stimulants. You don't want to overdo it, and you certainly don't want to take them if you don't need them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who can get better at memory by learn. I think one of the things I'm a big believer in is constantly trying to learn new things. So maybe you're not going to become fluent in a new language, but like when I travel someplace, I like to try and learn enough of the language to order beer, to say hello, to say thank you, to ask where is something.
Yep.
And
would you say that's one of the reasons you're successful? You've always been about learning?
Well, I hope so. I think lifelong learning
Yeah.
is fundamental to success.
Yeah.
Curiosity. Hopefully people are just, learn to be curious.
Yep.
Which is, whether it's in conversation, asking people about
I wonder,
themselves.
do you think that's something, because like with me, there's a lot of shit I'm bad at, but I guess one of the things I'm technically decent at is I'm just genuinely curious. Like, so I don't have to force that. Everything I'm asking you right now, I really want to know if this camera's there or not.
Yeah.
And so do you think that's something that, because maybe that was natural for me, but someone else...
I think it's good. Hopefully people are curious. Hopefully people, I think that's part of a growth mindset, a commitment to lifelong learning. And I think too, like if you really want to be a global citizen, if you want to be bigger than just the place you come from, I mean, just moving from Houston to California is a big deal. Most people never do that.
Yeah, it's
right?
fair.
But just being aware of where you live, who you're around, what the behaviors are, learning to mimic and try and be a part of a community, fit in. I mean, that's part of.
It's a good point.
Travel and growth.
And you do that everywhere you're going, even if you're in Kazakhstan or Paris.
I mean, I'll eat almost anything. I've eaten all kinds of crazy things.
Let's hear. What's some of the crazy shit you've eaten?
Well, so in Kazakhstan, if you're a guest of honor in somebody's house, often they'll butcher a lamb and then roast it, and then you eat the head together. So you eat the eyes so you see each other, you eat the ears so you can hear each other, you eat the brain so you can understand each other.
Really?
And it's it's not my favorite thing to eat.
It wasn't that tasty, besides it looking gross?
I'm not a huge fan of... I like lamb. I'm not a big fan of eating sheep. Mutton's a little greasy for me, but they love it there.
Did you hang out with Borat while you're there at all?
Yeksamesh.
Yeksamesh.
They do not say Yeksamesh, and he's not actually... Sacha Baron Cohen is not actually from Kazakhstan.
He is not.
I think what
I would love to interview him, by the way. I think he'd be fascinating.
Really fascinating, right?
Right?
Like especially what drives him behind his humor is really interesting, I think.
Oh, I don't even know. Do you know what drives him for that?
Well, I mean, he's Jewish.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think what he's trying to call attention to is like some of the underlying racism and bigotry that's inherent in culture. And I think when somebody's Jewish and they've been exposed to anti-Semitism, they're more aware of it. And so it's I think he does a really good job of calling attention to it in ways that are funny, so that you're laughing while you're seeing it, and you're like, so your defense is down, so you're not, and you're kind of like, ooh, wow,
right? What's that new show that he's doing? It's
the
This Is America or something?
Yeah, This Is America.
Yeah,
he has all these characters.
Right? Did you see that with the congressman?
With Dan Rohrabacher. He was our congressman here.
Oh, you're right. I didn't even think.
Harley
about
Ruda
that.
just replaced him.
That's
Dana's actually a very nice guy. I think he. And I like him as a person. I think I don't agree with a lot of the things, a lot of places he went later in his career. But I like him as a person, and I think it was a good time for him to retire. And I think Harley Ruda is a really good replacement for him.
He replaced him last year, 2 years ago, or something.
Almost 2 years ago. Okay. Yeah. So he was so it was so the election's coming up. So it's 17.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think it was 2000. It was 2018. So 2020 he'll be up for re-election. Wow. So it's coming, right? Yeah, this coming. I think that's right. Well, you'll have to check me on that. I'm not.
Yeah, you're good.
It's like he's a first-term congressman right now.
Yep.
But Harley's a very moderate Democrat, which I think represents our district well, which has historically been a Republican. District. Yeah. But I think there's been a lot of difficulty in the Republican Party, and the demographics have changed a little bit in our district, and it's kind of like Conor Lamb in Virginia.
Is that the one who just won?
Yeah, he won. He's another moderate Democrat.
Yep.
I think it's.
Do you think moderate Democrats have a better chance than someone who's very far left, like an Elizabeth Warren?
I was raised as a Republican, and I don't have any big bones to pick in general with the Republican Party.
Yeah.
But I think the Republican Party has gone off the rails.
Yeah.
I think it's like Looney Tune land right now.
Yeah.
And frankly, both parties have plenty of problems.
Yeah.
I didn't like, for example, in the Obama administration when they just basically stole Fannie and Freddie. They literally, the Treasury just took over two of the biggest public companies in America. And rob shareholders of shareholder value. That's basically what banana republics do. And also, the Trump administration has been saying they're going to give it back, but they've been very happy to keep cleaning out the dividends from Fannie and Freddie. So hopefully they will give it back. Mnuchin's.
Do you think they will? It's hard to really believe much what they say, though.
Yeah, that's the problem is they keep claiming they will, but they can't. They're spending so much money right now. They're literally the biggest spenders we've had.
Yeah.
I hope they can get spending under control, and I hope they can give shareholders Fannie and Freddie back.
Yeah.
Because that would show that we have rule of law in America and that we respect private property and shareholders.
Yep.
And I think it would be good for mortgages in America. But we'll see what happens. They're saying they're threatening that they're going to do that.
Yeah.
But I think both parties have plenty of problems.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest problem we have in America is that it's a binary process.
Yes, 100%. There should be if the Libertarian Party was realistic, I think that aligns a lot more with what I think because it's socially liberal, a little more fiscally conservative, generally speaking.
Yeah,
but they never have the right funding. Is that what it is?
Yeah, they're also a little crazy. The party itself, it's like if you've ever been to a Libertarian Party event, but
I have not actually.
Yeah, if you go once, you'll figure it out.
I should.
It's guys with good economic. They're good economists, but not very realistic about how I think things work sometimes.
Yeah. What about the Green Party, another just unrealistic party?
Well, I think what's good is when everyone has a voice and they feel like their voice is heard and they have some power in society because that's when you, I think, have a functional country, right?
Yep.
You don't have to give them all equal power. I think that's where parliamentary systems do pretty well is you have to build coalitions and so people's voices gets heard and even if they don't have a majority, they at least have a place and a place to participate. Where you have revolution is when people feel like their voices aren't being heard.
Exactly.
And I think that people who voted for Trump that was part of what was happening was people were saying, no one's listening to me. I'm not really a part of this two-party system that's making people who participate in it really wealthy, and we have a diminishing middle class and poverty, people in grinding poverty.
Yeah.
I think there were people who wanted to take out the trash with a bulldozer, and they were very effective in their choice.
100%. Like, I think there are probably even people that dislike Trump that just felt like that's why they had to go with him.
I just want to kick in the door at the U.S. government,
Exactly.
the federal government, and so I was I was getting my hair cut in Boston one time when the IRS building in Oklahoma City was bombed by Timothy McVeigh.
Wow.
And
yeah, I vaguely remember. I was a little kid, but
basically this thing blows up and it's in flames, and this, we didn't know at the time that a bunch of kids were killed, and there was a daycare center and all these other things, and the human cost. But but as an example of that, the guy cutting my hair in Boston in this barber shop, he looks at it and he just goes, "Throw another log on the fire." And I think it's that mentality. Not that he wasn't making a statement about the human life.
Yeah, of course.
He was making a statement that an IRS building got bombed, and he was frustrated with probably the use of his tax dollars and the threats that were probably put on him to pay his taxes. And when you don't know where they're going, you feel like maybe it's the money that's being wasted.
Yep. Which there's a lot of wasted money.
I like to say if the government was a charity, nobody would give to it,
right?
Because the money is so poorly utilized.
How does that change? Does that ever change? Where do we need more people that were in business? Obviously, not a Trump. Many people would argue, but
I think Thomas Jefferson said a little revolution now and again is a good thing, and I think that the founding fathers had this idea that there would be some revolutions that would happen. Hopefully, not as bloody as the American Revolution, and hopefully not as chaotic as the French revolutions. I mean, they had revolution after revolution after revolution, which ultimately led to Napoleon. Right?
You're referring to Napoleon Dynamite, of course.
Yeah. The ultimate Napoleon. The final Napoleon. But I think I think the idea of having a system where people feel heard and feel empowered and feel like this is why I think we should be building a country together rather than having a binary set of choices. Is where we're actually going to get to something great again. Yeah,
and so with that said, do you think, hypothetically, if Trump wins again, or let's say if he loses, do you think there's some sort of revolution, or,
Well, I would say that, I think, sometimes we overstate what the president's role is.
Good point.
I think the real question is, will the Republicans keep the Senate?
That's a very good point.
If the Republicans lose the Senate, then it really won't matter if Trump gets reelected because he'll get impeached.
He'll have no control. Yeah,
well, he'll be impeached.
Yeah,
I think.
True. Because you think it'll get through the Congress, but it's not going to get through the Senate in terms of the.
Yeah, I'm not I don't have a crystal ball, but looking at the impeachment hearings today.
But let me take out my crystal ball real quick.
I can't imagine that every Democrat in the House won't vote for impeachment. Right?
Exactly.
And probably some Republicans.
Just what Republicans are going to really turn, right?
My guess is Republicans who are from districts that are not horribly pro-Trump.
Exactly.
And there's, if you come from a moderate district, it's hard to watch this stuff and be a Republican,
Right.
I'm an independent now. I just left both parties. I can't stand
for a while now, or was it after this election?
I officially went independent before the last election.
Wow.
Well, when I thought it was going to be another Clinton-Bush election.
Yeah.
Because I thought Jeb Bush was going to get the
Republican
nomination.
He had a lot of money behind him.
He was the front runner at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And I just said from the beginning, I said I will not vote for a Bush-Clinton choice again.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to be an oligarchy.
Right.
And it feels like an oligarchy.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time we've had families that have had multiple presidents. The Adams, other people. But I guess that we should be better than that in America.
Yeah.
When my friends in Russia are saying, "What the heck,"
right? Do you if you had to guess right now, have you been following the Democratic debates at all, and following the process?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think presidential politics this early,
it's early. Yeah.
Is still a horse race.
Yeah.
I did give a little money. Full disclosure, I gave some money to Bullock, and I gave some money to Mayor Pete.
Interesting. I'm glad you said that. I publicly said months ago that Pete, this is when he had like 4% in the polls. I said Pete Buttigieg will be the next president of the United States. Reason I said that is unrealistic as it sounded then. It's still pretty unrealistic. Although now he's
trending up.
He's trending up. He's won in Iowa right now.
Yeah.
So the reason that I said that is because I watched an interview with him, a long form interview, and I thought, this is one of the most reasonable people I've ever heard.
Speaks
and he's
9
brilliant.
languages, was in the army. He's gay, goes to church, believes in. He hits all these key kind of American buttons today, particularly in modern America.
Yeah.
I like Bullock for the same reason.
Is he still in, or is
he's still in? He's below 1%. But but I also say, I mean, Biden's self-imploding.
Oh, he really is.
Warren's an unwinnable candidate.
So unwinnable.
You'll probably get some hate mail for this. Bernie Sanders, a hell of a nice guy with great intentions.
He's a nice guy, but I mean, he's a little too extreme in my opinion.
And he's had a heart attack. And he's 78. I mean, look, is that really what you want to elect? I mean, it just comes down to some basic math there.
Yeah.
The other thing I think you get to is, at this point, I kind of look at, I don't want an extreme president. I don't want extreme writer. I don't want crazy anymore. Yeah. I want,
we have that.
Somebody had a bumper sticker that said, any responsible adult 2020,
Yes.
And I think that's what I love Bullock because he's from Montana. He owns guns.
Steve Bullock's his name, is that right?
Yeah, and he's a governor, so he's actually governed something.
Yeah.
He's a moderate Democrat who isn't going to make dumb decisions.
Yeah.
And I think Mayor Pete's the same way. Guy speaks 9 languages. He's a very rational thinker.
In the military.
Yeah. He's very inclusive. He gets America.
Yeah.
Particularly the America that I think is the future of America.
Right.
And would fit in well in the wider world.
Yep.
To be a great statesman.
Yeah. To beat a Trump though, it's because Trump's going to make so much shit up about whoever he's facing. So.
I think the biggest thing with Trump is you don't cater to him.
Good point.
He's a reality TV star,
clearly,
who is brilliant at getting people to react to his message.
Brilliant at that,
and that's why he wins.
And I'm not a fan of his at all. Full disclosure.
When everyone's reacting to your message, you're winning, right? You're controlling the conversation. I think he's been brilliant at that. I think he's been very good at that.
Yeah.
It's I think the lack of transparency, the conflicts of interest, all the issues that we're seeing in this.
Have you ever seen anyone that lies as much as he does?
Maybe Richard Nixon. But,
okay. And he lived around here, right? Nixon?
He had the Western White House down in San Clemente. Yeah.
Okay.
He's originally from inland a little bit. I'll think of it in a second. But where the Nixon Library is.
I need to check that out.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where it's kind of inland from Tustin. I'm just trying to remember the name of the city. But the he had the Western White House when he was in the White House. He had this Western house, he had his home out here, like his resort home was in San Clemente, right where Cotton's Point is.
Yep,
still there. But so I don't know. Who knows who's going to be president? What I hope is that we get somebody who pulls both sides of the country back together and can help heal things and hopefully cut the heck out of spending.
Right.
And we get to some healthier behaviors.
I did think that Biden had a very realistic chance week 1, and then week 2, I'm like, damn, he's seen much better days.
Well, he just had another bad one, right? I mean, how are we going to fix rape? He's like, we're just going to keep punching away at it.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that. Yeah, he said something
domestic
about
abuse.
Exactly.
It was just like the worst answer you could have.
Yeah, you saw Kamala Harris's face after, like, what did you just say that?
Well, I mean, they're all flawed characters, right?
Oh, for sure.
And not in great ways.
So. What do you think about being a businessman, Andrew Yang? I
don't know him well enough.
Okay, yeah. He just seems like an interesting guy. He just like diagnoses the problem kind of well, but
probably unelectable in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It hadn't really piqued any of my interest, but I mean, who knows? I hope we get somebody who can pull the country together.
Exactly. Well, to go back to another topic, because I wanted to kind of finish that. I was curious. So on the morning routine, because that's something everyone that I speak with that's successful, I am really curious about their morning routine. So you start with the green tea.
It depends where I am in the world. I like to. I usually travel with my own green tea, or I find some. But I always like to have green tea.
So what does that? What does the green tea do? You said it even helps with memory. Is that what you said?
Well, it has. Green tea has green tea catechins, which help your body boost your metabolism. They help you burn calories that you may have stored. But the other thing that it does is it has caffeine in it, so it helps boost your memory and focus, concentration, etc. Helps curb my appetite for sure.
Does it curb your enthusiasm as well?
It excites my enthusiasm. But
it's a great show.
Yeah, it's a great show. Yeah, but I love working out in the morning. I like to try and move wherever I am. So if I'm changing big time zones, I like to work out hard in sunlight first thing in the morning.
You say work out hard. What are you doing?
I like to do intervals. So I'll do I used to do intervals or go running, but I have a knee that's not as good as it used to be, so I like to do it on a bike now.
Yep.
And then I usually do some core exercises, variety of things, V-ups, squat jacks or burpees, different things like that.
Burpees are
pull-ups.
tough. That's first thing. Like, how early? Do you normally get up at a certain time, or really
it varies? It kind of depends on my schedule and where I am. But I try and right out of bed, try and drink some green tea, go do that.
Nice.
Sweat through my clothes and then figure out what I'm going to do next.
Right away.
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel great? I love that. I work out in the morning too.
Is that what you do?
Yeah. I love.
What's yours?
So I'll do wake up. I'll go to the gym or I'll run.
Yeah.
And if I'm running, I'll run down like to Main Beach back. Sometimes get in the ocean as well, so that cold. Do Wim Hof before that.
Yeah, I love getting in the ocean every morning.
Oh, you do it every morning.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm here, I almost always get in the ocean.
Yeah. I need to do it because I'm pretty close. I need to do it every morning, but I honestly don't.
Yeah, either I go surfing, body surfing. So I don't really stand up paddle as much anymore, or I go free diving. I still do some stand up paddling, but it's more equipment.
Is that after you do your workout or before?
It depends. Some mornings, Tuesdays and Fridays, I'll do a workout first and then go surfing. If it's really good, sometimes I'll get up really early, go surfing, do a workout, then usually get back in the water.
Yeah.
But I try and it varies.
The green tea, that's like one thing that I have been thinking about a little bit. Green tea's come up a few times, and I just I forget and haven't done it. But maybe that's something I need to add into my routine.
Yeah, try and find I love sencha, which is a Japanese green tea, and matcha are also really good.
Is this warm? Or are you making it cold?
Yeah, hot green tea.
Yeah.
So there's some good ones out there, but. Itoen makes some nice ones. There's some matcha stick packs that Itoen makes that I buy on Amazon from Japan that I carry with me that I just put in hot water. Nice. Of course, I drink an excess or two in the morning to get things moving.
I love it.
But I like the hot green tea. That seems to be a good one.
Yep. And then, do you eat breakfast as well? Or you said you do the intermittent
fasting.
I've
been skipping breakfast. Yeah, I usually don't. I've
been
been skipping breakfast and.
You said the tea kind of curbs your appetite a little bit.
Totally curbs it. Yeah.
I need that. I really like my issue with eating. I literally just eat too much. My friends joked we can't do a bend meal right now because they know that means we're just gonna have to get every appetizer. Yeah, we're just gonna have to go hard.
It's okay to do that once in a while. I think it's just you're trying to And you're young and you probably have better metabolism. The older you get, the harder it is. So
I've already noticed that.
Yeah, you're trying to, just trying to keep things under control.
Right.
And I like to eat nice meals. So I'm naturally not a big sweet eater. So
that's good.
I love fish. Yeah. I love fish, lots of vegetables. Like the Mediterranean diet works really well for me, for my blood type and everything. So
are you a pretty healthy eater?
I think so. I mean, I was raised that way, and definitely eat. I'll party or I'll eat the wrong things from time to time. But, it's not every day.
But you're strict to an extent, but you don't necessarily overthink it, or are you
I've learned to just really love lots of vegetables.
Yeah.
Especially like broccoli, spinach, lentils.
Like kale?
I'm not a huge kale guy unless it's really chopped up or marinated. Yep. It's just so tough, But one of my favorite places to eat in Tokyo is Green Bros, which is from New York originally, but they do these chopped salads that are amazing. Yeah. I love the chopped salad here, pointing that way, over at Wine Gallery.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good one.
I haven't had it there, but I've been there,
Yeah. Pizzas are good there, too.
Yeah. It's a nice, this is a good transition. It's a nice date spot. So I'm curious, because you've been married for a while, I take it? Or?
Yeah, married for 26 years.
So I have to tell you, because obviously you don't know that much about me yet, but I have to say there's one part of my life that I feel like is for sure missing. I tell all my close friends know this about me. I feel like business-wise, I'm on the right trajectory, still nowhere near where I want to be, but I'm making moves. Yeah. Personal-wise, have some great friends, great family and whatnot. Take care of myself pretty well. But the one area, very candidly, that I'm missing and I want, but I'm being very picky on, is finding that right relationship. And I think it's important in life. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean...
So what's the secret?
I don't know if there's a secret, but...
Tinder?
Keep looking. Tinder. I think it's hard to meet nice girls in bars. I mean, to be honest. I mean, there are nice girls who go to bars, and there's nice people. And I think getting around high quality people in high quality environments is usually the best way to do it. Mm-hmm. That being said, I love going to bars. I'm not opposed to it. Right? It's
full disclosure.
I didn't meet my wife in a bar.
Yeah,
and
fair.
We go to plenty of bars together. But it's my sister actually introduced us. But I actually, I've heard a lot of these dating sites are pretty good actually.
Yeah, some of it sometimes that can work.
I've had a lot of friends that met on Match.com.
Wow.
just because I think it helps you meet people with similar interests.
Exactly.
Right? And it kind of vets people.
Yep.
I'm not an expert on dating.
Yeah,
so,
but then you're an expert on a happy marriage, 26 years. So once you're
staying married,
well, everyone who stays married, obviously, there's got to be ups and downs. Along the way.
No, I mean you go through seasons, right? And we're in a good season now, and intend to stay there. I think the biggest key is you've got to be with somebody where you're both committed to putting more in than you take out. And if you're in a relationship with somebody where they're always counting or you're always counting, probably the wrong relationship. I kind of think you want to find somebody that you can't imagine not being with.
Like your best friend almost, right?
Yeah. Like somebody that, that you just... I remember when my wife and I were together, and she was in her senior year of college. I was working at this think tank. She moved back to Boston. I helped her move back to Boston. I was in transition. I did some political work in Wisconsin, and then moved out to California. And, for us being apart for whatever it was, 3 or 4 months, I think it was just it was really hard, and we kind of realized it wasn't. Some people are apart and they're like, hey, this is kind of nice. And I think for us, and I'd had plenty of those relationships, and I think this is one where it was like, I really don't want to be apart anymore. Like I really think, and I wasn't looking to get married, she wasn't looking to. But it just, she moved out to California, we lived together for a while, and then we got married, and it was it stuck. So having kids helps. Got a lot invested at that point,
right?
But, and I've always been working a lot, and so she's used to that. I think some of my friends who've gotten divorced, their lifestyle changed a lot, where they were gone a lot, and that wasn't healthy for them.
Has that happened a lot? Like a lot of friends have been divorced, because it's obviously super common nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't really matter.
50%. Right?
I think it's across every demographic.
Exactly.
There's just high divorce rates.
Why is that, though? Do you think it has anything to do with society in general and technology?
I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. I think. I mean, I think, when people can get divorced, they do. If I have a friend that says you're about as loyal as your options.
Wow.
And I think for a lot of people,
I like that.
It's a lot more socially acceptable to get divorced than it used to be. 2, women have more freedom to earn money and to build a life, so they don't have to stay married to a guy that's not treating them well. And vice versa.
I think Borat would not like that.
My wife.
So my wife just stays in the kitchen.
So I think getting to a point where people have the freedom to not have to stick together if it's not working allows them to split up. People are living longer. And there's an argument that maybe people being monogamous for their whole lives is,
I think that's a reasonable argument too.
And ultimately, I think the people who do stay together and have great marriages are just committed to making the marriage work and adding value to each other the whole way. And that's where you see the best marriages. And that's a really simple secret, and it's really hard. Because especially, I mean, look, as a guy, you get married, and a lot of guys think that their honeymoon's going to be the whole way the marriage is, where it's sex all the time, and then after you're together, sometimes Wait,
it's not. I don't want to get married anymore. I thought
after that's a joke among guys who've been married, but especially after kids and women have been through a lot, their hormones change. It's not as physical as it used to be, and a lot of guys get very frustrated with that, and they start looking further afield, and they make mistakes, and. Or maybe they start, the wife starts getting resentful that the husband's gone all the time, and she's carrying all the water at home and not getting, recognized for it. There's a million reasons why people, kind of become.
I think finance is probably a big one too, though. Often.
Finance is huge. Just progress in life. I think when people feel like they're stuck in dead ends. One of the ways they feel like they can get free of that is by separation. So there's lots of reasons people get divorced, but I think ultimately, if 2 people want to, deliberately keep investing and keep asking, how can I make my partner's life better? It's pretty hard to get divorced.
And that's a beautiful thing, though, when you really are both making each other better. And your wife was obviously there through bad times and amazing times.
We were. We joke, when I moved out to California, I could fit everything I owned in a Honda Prelude, and so we've.
And she was with you then.
So I mean we didn't have anything when we got together, and we made some money and lost some money along the way, and we're doing pretty well now, and hopefully we'll continue to do well. Knock on wood.
Knock on some wood, some fake wood there.
wood like plastic.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then how many kids do you have?
We have 2 boys.
Okay.
So 25 and 22, and
Oh, nice.
25-year-olds in graduate school. He worked in Spain for a while after college, and
So 22-year one's in Paris.
22-year-old went to school in Europe, started out in
Yeah.
Switzerland, and then finished in Paris, and he's still living and working in Paris.
So you really have let your kids go free.
Yeah, I mean, they've traveled a lot. We've
Yeah.
traveled a lot as a family, and so I think they're very comfortable traveling. And we tried to get them out of Laguna in the summer, just to live somewhere else. This place is a bubble. It's a beautiful bubble,
Yeah,
but
you're so right.
It's not necessarily the real world all the time.
Correct.
And so, and one of the things I noticed when we moved here is some of the people who are from here who haven't traveled or left very much get also very parochial. I mean, it can be in a really cool way. They can be great surfers or other things, but if you really haven't lived other places and experienced other parts of the world, it's easy to think that this is the only way it can be.
Yeah.
Or this is the only way it should be. And I think that's an unhealthy behavior.
So it sounds like you're very cultured, and you highly promote becoming cultured.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm cultured. I mean,
It sounds like, you're going to a lot of places. It sounds like you're open-minded wherever you're going.
I mean, I like to explore, be curious, and be aware that it's not that hard to get up and move. I moved to Japan right out of college. When I came back to West Michigan, I was renting a room in a house with some other guys that I'd gone to high school and college with, and one of the guys said, he goes, "How did you do it?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "How'd you move to Japan?" And I was like, I borrowed a little money from my dad for a plane ticket, and I went over there, lived in a youth hostel, got a job.
Mm-hmm. You just did it.
I did it. I went.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he goes, I don't know if I could do that. And I was like, and it was like a little baffling to me. I mean, I was lucky enough to have traveled as a kid.
Yep.
And what I didn't realize was that when you're young, one of the great gifts your parents can give you is to get you out of your comfort zone and go other places and make it feel like a normal thing.
Yep.
And that was a great gift my parents gave me, and so I've tried to give that to my kids. And so my younger son, on any given weekend, can be in Berlin or, Vietnam, or because it's pretty cheap to travel now.
Yeah.
And literally, it's cheaper to take the plane in Europe to go to Madrid from Paris than it is to take a train.
That's crazy.
It's $40 tickets on EasyJet and
Wow.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you can VRBO with your buddies, or
there's a lot of creative ways to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to spend a lot of money.
Exactly.
So it's, if you're smart with your money and they're on budgets, and they had to earn some of their own money. If you're smart with your money, you can figure it out.
What would you consider so smart with your money? Are you big on? Have you always been big on budgeting? Are you
try to be?
Yeah.
I'm not always as disciplined as I need to be, but I think it's always good to spend a lot less than you make. I think it's good to pay your, especially if you have a business, pay your taxes first. Mm-hmm. Always set money aside. I've rarely met somebody that's like, man, I just saved way too much money.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
It's, and you never think you need it till you do, and then it's the worst time to have to try and find it.
Yep.
The worst time to go to a bank for a loan is when you need a loan. Best time to go to a bank is when you have a lot of money in their bank
don't need it.
You don't necessarily need it. Mm-hmm. So I think establishing credit, managing that really well, being disciplined. Mm-hmm. I've definitely gotten in over my head. Mm-hmm. And I have a tendency to see opportunity and not always pay close attention to risk.
Yeah.
So part of what I've surrounded, like my buddy Glenn, who we do a lot of deals together, he's much more pessimistic than I am. And I'm much more optimistic.
Yeah.
And
do you think you need that push and pull?
Yep. I think it's really healthy.
Yeah.
And so I've always tried to, have a CFO or somebody in my life, maybe multiple people who are really always pushing that discipline.
Yep. And number focused. And,
bringing my attention to things that I might overlook.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you consider yourself, if I had to guess, you wouldn't have reached where you've reached without being disciplined, but take even finance side, but maybe include that, just each area of life. Have you always been fairly disciplined human?
Yeah, I'm lucky. My dad was good with us.
He was in the military, you said? Or he was
because the Vietnam War was going on. So
then he was a doctor?
Yeah, so he was a doctor. He stayed at Johns Hopkins as long as he could, and then eventually the government said, hey, it's time to come out of medical school now. Wow. And so he was at Andrews Air Force Base for a couple of years, and he was a major in the Air Force. But he had a private practice and did fairly well. I think as a head and neck surgeon, I think the thing that he did with us is we always had to work, and if we worked for him, then he would pay us a hourly rate. We had to keep track of it. We had to give him an invoice. Yep. And then my parents are Protestant Christians, and so they had this idea that 10% of whatever you made went into the church collection plate.
Yep.
45% of what you made went into your savings account, and the other 45% you could use for things you wanted to spend money on.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to, and they made us buy, like, if I wanted new skis, I had to save money for new skis. If I wanted to snowboard, I had to save money for a snowboard.
Yep.
And other things. And
That's how you'd appreciate money.
Yeah. They bought other things for us. They paid for school. We raced a lot of sailboats. My dad paid for. My parents live on a lake, and they paid for boats and stuff. So we were really lucky in some ways.
Yeah.
But I think that discipline, having, another thing that I didn't realize everybody didn't have until later, was parents that taught me to save money at an early age, and that this is what money's for. Part of it is for, because we believe that we live in an expanding universe, and that this was given to us from something bigger than ourselves. Yeah. You are always setting aside money to give back or to pay forward, right? Yep. Be generous because you live in a creative universe. There's always money you need to save because you'll need assets. Yes. Right? Things that you will invest. Either it's in a savings account that's earning interest, or maybe there's you want to start a lemonade stand or a lawn mowing business. You'll need some capital to start those things.
Absolutely. Do you find giving back, it just feels really good too? I mean,
my accountant thinks I give too much away, and I think that's a healthy balance too. I'm a huge fan of supporting causes that I think are worthy. Yep. I these days I really like to see sustainable causes. That's why I like this Life Builders group. I mean, it's a great investment.
Where are they based out of? Detroit?
They're in Detroit. Yeah. But we buy, one of the things we do is we donate to them, but we also we buy houses, and just the simple math is we pay roughly $50,000 for a nicely finished home in a place that was really beat up that's coming back, and they help people get into rent those houses for about $800 a month, which is a good price and a nice home.
Sustainable living.
Yeah. And then so we get a nice dividend check, and those homes are all appreciating. Now the city of Detroit is investing in those in Regent Park, so it's a nice community. And so, we're making nice capital appreciation on the homes. We're getting nice dividends on the rent. They manage it for us. And ultimately our goal is that the people who are renters will buy the homes.
Beautiful.
So that they, get on the elevator and have an asset.
Yep.
And we're working with partners to help people who are first-time home buyers in those types of areas to be able to do that.
Very cool.
But those are the kind of things that I love.
Yeah.
Andre Agassi does that with a school. He has a school, these charter schools that he's involved with, where he has a REIT, a real estate investment trust, that owns the property. That's a very healthy financial play. Yeah. And then that REIT helps fund these schools that are for underprivileged kids who wouldn't get to go to great schools. Yep. That are really helping kids perform at a higher level. Yeah. And that whole combination becomes, kind of a triple bottom line, where you're creating great financial returns, you're helping people live better lives, particularly people that need some help. And that helps fund the programs that are going to continue to help more people. Yeah. It's hard to do that. Those are hard things to make work.
But if you can do good and make money at the same time, I mean, that's the dream.
It's the ultimate creation of wealth, right? Yep. Those are the kind of things that I think are really important. And some of the things we give to, like Tahira Justice Center, we do a big, we've been the co-chairs of a big fundraiser here the last 2 years, which is a group that helps women who are escaping violence, gender-based violence in other countries coming to America. Yep. We have asylum laws here, which are under attack right now. And those asylum laws are put in place because this country is all about welcoming people who aren't high performers in other places, who want a chance, a level playing field to be able to perform. Correct. And if they're escaping, violence, then we have asylum laws to allow them to come here and live in a safe place.
I don't think the current administration would agree with that.
Yeah, I think our current administration is confused about a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree.
Including what country we live in.
Yeah.
And what rule of law is.
Right, agree.
I think the thing that's great is this organization helps a lot of women work their way through the system. If you try and do it without an attorney, you won't get through it. Yeah. More than 95% of the women who are in their getting help from their attorneys get asylum in the United States and end up having much more successful lives. And And I think that's really important. I mean, immigrants are what build America.
100%. So your family is Dutch, right?
Yeah. We're between my wife's mother came over, my grandparents came over. So, we're 1 and 2 generations away from immigration. So immigration to me, even though I'm blonde hair and blue eyed, we're immigrants too. Yeah. And I think people forget where they come from.
Right. Yeah. My grandpa on my mom's side, my dad's side escaped the Holocaust in Germany.
Wow.
So yeah, it's that I try to remind myself about that so you don't take it for granted.
Where was he from?
I don't know where in Germany, but yeah,
it was in Germany.
Yeah, Germany.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well,
then moved to Massachusetts,
and that's why you're here today. Right?
Yeah, that's why I'm here today. If he didn't escape the Holocaust, I guess I wouldn't even be here. So yeah. So
no, I have some. We have a lot of Jewish friends, and one of my friends, I sat Shoah with him when his father died, who was a Holocaust survivor, and their family tree on his father's side. His father was the only person out of an entire generation that escaped Europe. Yep. And you see what modern Germany is a much more is a wonderful place. Yeah. But that era of Germany, during Hitler and the Nazi regime, was incredibly effective at wiping out a generation of Jews in Europe. And
6 million.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. And it's really horrific. And genocide is something that's happened throughout history,
and still is going on.
It just happened in Rwanda.
Yeah.
It's always neighbor against neighbor, which is there's this horrifying part of humanity that's capable of kind of unspeakable evil.
Yeah, and that's why I felt passionate. So I actually always held back from talking politics publicly, but I've always been passionate about it. I've always been a news junkie. I've got that from my parents and grandparents. But I don't know. There's something about Trump brought it out of me where I felt the need to start speaking, and I think part of it was just the fact that he was demonizing immigrants and just scapegoating, and it was the same feeling of my grandparents. My great grandma did die in the Holocaust. She was murdered in the Holocaust. Yeah, so just thinking that it's the same methodology of scapegoating a group who are probably overall really good people who would help that group if they weren't being scapegoated. It just makes you feel, I guess, a need to stand up for them, but also just makes you question what is possible even now, even in 2019.
There's a documentary that I was executive producer on called Same God Film.
Damn, you're even more interesting than I thought.
It actually airs nationally this week on
cool.
PBS.
Oh, cool.
And it's about a professor at Wheaton College, where a school I got kicked out of, who, Wheaton was founded by abolitionists. It's one of the great, it's probably the highest performing academic Christian college in America. Wow. They claim to be the Harvard of Christian colleges, which I think is kind of a little absurd. But it's a school founded by abolitionists. It was a stop on the Underground Railroad. It was founded by Protestant Christians who believed in social justice in the 1800s. Yep. They graduated, I think, the first African-American man. They admitted the first African-American woman in the 1800s, post-Civil War, when a lot of schools weren't doing that. Yeah. And so the first African-American female tenured professor, was fired a few years ago because she decided to wear a hijab during Advent with her students. She was teaching political science. For that. She was teaching political science, teaching embodied solidarity, that when you see a minority in your community being oppressed or persecuted, you put your body in front of it. Yeah. Right? This is what you were talking about.
Yeah.
More people needed to stand up to the Nazis.
In which there were some people who did, but not nearly enough. Yeah.
Right, not enough. And so embodied solidarity is this whole idea of peaceful protest, putting your body in between the oppressor and the oppressed. Martin Luther King taught that really well. Yeah. Peaceful protest, etc. Gandhi was, I think, the originator or one of the early practitioners of it. But she was teaching this, and her students were like, "Hey, it's Advent. This is when, in the Christian tradition, we open the doors to the community." We feel like Muslims in our community are being persecuted, and women wear hijabs, a head covering, which identifies them as Muslims, and they get persecuted more because it's visual.
Absolutely.
And so they're like, we want to wear hijabs in solidarity with Muslim women to demonstrate that, we're with them,
you,
right? And to also experience some of the same things that they experience.
Yeah.
So she was, and the professor was like, "Oh, that's great." She puts a hijab on, posts a picture on Facebook going into finals, doesn't even look at her Facebook, and it went. Wheaton has become a very conservative, Trumpy place, and she ended up getting fired because people just, went into an uproar over the fact that a black woman had a hijab on her head, and jumped to all these conclusions. And she said, her comment was, "Hey, look, we're doing this with embodied solidarity with Muslim women because they feel persecuted. And as Pope Francis said, we all worship, we're all people of the book. We all worship the same God.
Yeah.
Right. Basically, Jews, Muslims, Christians are all children of Abraham, effectively, and they all claim to worship the God of Abraham.
Yep.
Right. It's not even debatable. That's a simple fact.
Correct.
And these
people would try to debate that.
these fundamentalist Christians wanted to argue that, well, I view God differently than a Muslim, and you're saying that I view it the same. And she's like, no, I'm not. Protestant Christians view God differently. Christians and Protestant, Roman Catholic, Eastern, all view that differently.
Yep.
Jews and Christians view God differently.
Yep.
Jews within the Jewish tradition view
Absolutely.
God differently, right?
Absolutely.
Muslims view God differently within their traditions.
Yep.
We're not arguing about whether or not we view it differently. Of course we do.
Exactly.
The question is, do we all claim the same? How many gods did Abraham have?
Yeah, right.
I think he had one. Right?
I think it was one.
That's the same God we're all
right.
claiming. But anyways, the bigger point of the story was, why can't we hear each other? Why is it that we're getting into these rabid arguments where no one's listening?
Yeah.
And by the way, at the core of it for this school, what's this whole idea of Christianity ultimately about? If you really believe that somebody is straying and leaving the fold, are you shooting them in the back? Yeah. Or are you going after that person saying, please come back?
Right. Very different.
And so I think it was these really big questions about, what is it about this visual that you saw, this African-American woman putting a headscarf on,
that frustrated you that much?
That upset you that much that you couldn't even hear the words coming out of her mouth.
Right.
Or read the words that she wrote. Right. And then she was treated really differently. Wheaton treated her really badly. But
damn.
So anyways, it became national news, and
I was going to say, I would hope that at least that's a known story now.
So when that happened, it was national news. Time Magazine did a big thing on it. Bigger story there. But a friend of mine who also went to Wheaton, we were both in the student newspaper together. She came to me. She's won Emmys, for producing news and done a lot of documentaries and reality TV. She came to me and said, "Hey, this story's happening right now. We should do a documentary on this. We should start covering it while it's happening." And so I was like, I'm in. Another friend of mine, Kathy Bolthouse Treat, who her dad started Bolthouse Farms, the baby carrots. And
absolutely.
Stuff. She came in, and so we kind of matched and supported it. And then Abigail Disney, from the Disney family, Roy Disney's daughter, joined later, and so we helped produce it. And Linda Midget really created the film with Larisha Hawkins. And
she's that lady who's super tall, right?
She is pretty tall, actually. It's a funny last name. But so anyway, so it's been to a lot of film festivals. It premiered at the LA Film Festival out here and sold out at extra nights. We've had lots of great screenings, packed houses, universities. But it's just finally airing nationally on PBS this weekend. I think it airs Friday here in LA.
Oh, very cool.
So we're pretty excited about that. So when you talk about embodied solidarity, I'm a big fan and big investor in embodied solidarity.
Right? Yeah. Wait, so how long have you been in? You've been in the movie business a little bit and the TV business a little bit as well.
We've made the first television and film production I did was called Lost Prophets, a movie about surfing on the Great Lakes and chasing the guys who surf those waves. We brought a lot of pros out to surf the Great Lakes with lake surfers, and that aired on NBC. We went to a lot of film festivals with that, and it ultimately aired on NBC's Adventure Sports World.
Oh, cool!
And a guy local here, Pat Parnell, who's kind of a famous action sports commentator. He's my age, actually. He did all the voiceover for NBC. Yeah. He does like a lot of the Olympics and stuff like that for board sports.
Nice.
And I didn't know him at all then, and hadn't met him, and I didn't meet him till probably 5 or 6 or 8 years later. And lived just around the corner from me on Brook Street. And now we're good friends. We do a lot of stuff together. But yes, I did that. We made a movie called Lost Prophets, which was a film going around the world with some different big wave surfers, barrel riders. That was a lot of fun. Almost killed myself a couple times.
Damn, how many times have you had near-death experiences? Have you had several or not really?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
You're inspiring me because I have a few friends that are... You're still alive. Yeah. I have a few friends that are, I think, getting me to be a little more adventurous. I would say, I'm, I guess, kind of adventurous, but when I speak to people like you, I feel like there's a lot of shit I haven't done that I really should.
I don't think you have to be that good, though. I think it's just going out and doing stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I found was when I went with people who are a lot better than me. You surf around here and you can be kind of good. You can get some trophies in local contests and stuff. You go out into the world with guys who all they do is chase huge barrels and ride those. It changes your game. And
Wow.
I didn't surf, I was hanging on for dear life and stuff that they're really comfortable in.
Yeah.
And you just start to see a totally different level.
Yep.
Same thing with skiing, same thing with snowboarding, same thing with, you can pick your targets.
From a standpoint of you're more comfortable then because you're with someone who's so good, or you're forced to be.
You start to get more comfortable because you start pushing yourself into situations and figuring out how to survive it and not get terribly hurt or torn up too badly and things like that.
Yeah.
And you just start, it's what we were talking about. It's the breathing, it's slowing down, it's focusing on your movements, and managing the situation.
Yep.
And learning. Obviously, people ride huge barrels with shallow reefs underneath them every day and don't die.
But
and so the question is,
sometimes
how can I learn to do that? Right?
Yeah.
And so that process is I think it's one of the more interesting processes. It's less. I love riding, barreling waves now, but it's getting to the point where you start to feel comfortable enough to not be freaked out every time you do it.
Yeah.
So you want to move from a comfort zone to a discomfort zone to a fear zone, and then you start moving that back into your comfort.
And do you think almost pushing yourself physically into those zones helps you in business in
Absolutely.
certain ways?
Yeah, I think it's something Laird Hamilton said in an interview we did with him, which was, I like to scare myself a little bit every day. And
you interviewed Laird?
Yeah, he was in a magazine
cool.
we published called Krakouche.
Nice.
So I think when if Laird's pushing himself every day, scaring himself a little bit every day, what am I doing? And it doesn't mean you have to do what Laird does, but it does mean that the only way that we grow and progress in life is by expanding that comfort zone. And the only way you expand that comfort zone is by scaring yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be careful. You don't want to put yourself in a fear zone where you're frozen, you can't
execute,
or you die.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
I do think you want to manage the risk.
Do you feel like there are ever moments where you question if you manage the risk properly? Like, fuck,
yeah.
I'm actually like...
No, I've gotten it over my head for sure.
Damn.
And that's where you learn. Hopefully you survive and you learn, and then you don't do that again. Right?
Hopefully you survive.
Yeah, but that's and my wife's pretty good too. I wanted to start base jumping, and she put the kibosh on that. She put the kibosh on regularly skydiving, and she put the kibosh on
regularly skydiving.
I love skydiving, but
yeah,
I'm not. She doesn't want me doing that, and then she really doesn't want me base jumping. So
what about bungee jumping?
I've done a lot of bungee jumping.
Yeah. I haven't done that yet. Is it recommended?
Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah, Pat Parnell and I did. He has a television show on Outside TV called the Expedition Series, and we do with Excess. We sponsored a 5-minute segment of the show called 48 Hours of Awesome.
Oh, cool.
Where we'll go do as many crazy things as we can in 48 hours.
Love it.
And we did some pretty good bungee jumps in New Zealand together. I've jumped off Macau Tower. That's like the biggest one in the world. That's more than 700 feet.
Jeez.
It's a big one. Yeah.
So that's the biggest one I'm assuming you've done then.
Yeah.
Right? That's massive.
Yeah, but I've done Quaru Bridge in New Zealand. I've done the Canyon Swings. There's a lot of great ones. There's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's worth doing.
Yeah, it is worth doing.
Yeah.
All right. And then skydiving as well. Also worth doing.
Yeah, I think for me, skydiving is less scary because you're so high up. It doesn't really feel like you're... Like with bungee jumping, you can see the ground right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no second chances if that thing breaks or something, right?
Does that happen often or not really?
Not often. I think it's... These days, there's some really good... organizations that they're safety testing everything. They're doing it at the same place all the time. They're double checking your weight. They know everything, right?
I'm curious then. So when you're taking some of these risks, would you go, for example, bungee jumping while in Kazakhstan, or you're like, I don't know if I can trust the requirements here?
I mean, I did it in Macau, which is China, but it's the same group that does the New Zealand bungee jumping. So I mean, I think it's good to know who you're jumping with. Same with skydiving.
Yeah,
I've only done it with really people who have thousands of jumps, and I did it in Fayetteville where the Special Forces train, so it's all really good.
North Carolina?
North Carolina. Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Yeah. I'm just bragging because it's my geography is terrible.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
So it's one I might know. I'm
gonna
try it. So it all comes back to managing risk though. So it's taking risk. Yeah. Same in business life. So it's taking risk, but it's managing that risk.
I figure if somebody's done 3,000 jumps, they're probably going to make 3,00001.
Yeah.
Right. Someone's done 5, maybe not the guy you want to go the first time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah, and the same thing with
Yeah.
scuba diving. I mean, get trained. That's why you can go to places like Mexico or usually French colonies where they just don't they don't care as much about being safe. And you can do like resort certifications like Tahiti, Caribbean, Mexico, where somebody will take you diving.
Yep.
But you're much better off just learning how to dive properly so that you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
And you don't hurt yourself.
Exactly. So I try to keep the podcast like pretty much 100% just natural, like whatever happens happens. But there are like a few questions I try to remind myself, like ask this at some point to everyone. So there's one that I'm really curious to hear how people answer, whether they're someone who sold $1 billion company, someone who's a rap, whatever it is, right? Because at least what I've noticed, and this actually has been somewhat of a surprise to me, most people, no matter what level they're at, what industry, male, female, whoever they are, have very similar answers. So I guess my question to you is just kind of piggybacking off all this a little bit. Maybe not. Maybe your answer has nothing to do with it, honestly. But what makes you happy? That simple. Literally, like what makes you happy? What makes you feel good? No pressure to answer any certain way. I'm just literally.
I mean, for me, it's when I really feel like I'm progressing in a direction that's fulfilling. That's generating self-fulfillment. So, I think one thing that human beings do uniquely as animals is we can deliberately add value to somebody else without asking for anything else in return.
You're adding value to me right now.
Well, thank you.
And anyone listening,
thanks,
for
man.
sure.
No, I find great satisfaction. That's why I like to give, whether it's money or time or what. I just. Even in business, I think, when you're giving, when you're offering value, people can say yes or no. They don't have to, it's not your job to convince them. It's your job to offer enough value that hopefully they want what you have.
Yeah.
Or if they say no, to learn what you need to offer so that they want what you're offering. So actually are adding value.
Yep.
And so when I'm offering value and people are thanking me for the value I've given, that's, really rewarding, whether it's with my wife, whether it's with my kids, whether it's in business, doesn't matter, in any part of life.
Yep.
The other thing is where I feel like I have pushed myself and progressed to a point where it's a thing that used to really freak me out or scare me.
Interesting.
That I start to feel quite comfortable doing. There's a deep sense of accomplishment for me in that.
What is that? Sometimes like these extreme sports, like
it can be an
big
extreme
waves,
sport. It can be business. It can be a lot of different. It can be travel. It's been a lot of different areas. Moving to a foreign country,
Japan.
Yeah, we lived in Germany for a while. I mean, I think it's just doing that. To me, what I've come, it's this growth mindset that I've certainly adopted, which is, learning that the things that scare you are probably the things that will help you grow. And when you've actually moved through those points and you've accomplished, it's that sense of satisfaction that you've become a bigger person than you thought you could be. And to me, that's just deeply rewarding. That's what drives me. And I think it's much less about a number in the bank or the kind of car I drive or however big a house is. None of that stuff really matters that much to me. I do like to have more money than less money. I do like to drive decent cars. Yeah. I'm not obsessed with those things, and if you took those things away, it wouldn't make me happy or unhappy necessarily. It might make me frustrated for a little while.
Of course, which makes sense. That's fair.
But I think seeking happiness in things is really a mistake. Typically, by the time you get the thing, you realize it's not going to give you all the things you thought it was going to give you. The worst day of buying a new car is the day after you bought it. Right.
That's very fair. Obviously, when it goes off the lot, it depreciates drastically as well. But that aside.
I didn't buy new cars until fairly recently, like last 10 years probably.
Are you a car guy at all, or not really?
I like cars, but I always thought it was such a hugely depreciating asset. It just made no sense to me. I would always buy like nice used cars. I also used to drive a lot.
Oh, okay.
When I was in the Bay Area, I used to drive a ton, so I'd try and buy a nice car that had 40, 50,000 miles on it. And then,
what kind of cars? Are you a classic car guy?
I drive like BMWs or something, but or Saab, something that I could put a lot of miles on and was pretty safe. I was putting 50,000 miles a year in a car, so it's something that wouldn't get killed in, and it's fun to drive.
Yeah.
But that I knew I was going to put 50,000 miles a year on it, so the dumbest thing I could do would be to buy a new car.
Wait, so I'm curious then on your advice, because I've heard pretty differing advice from successful people either way have said very different things on this, which is, in full candor, I sold my car, I Uber everywhere now.
Yeah.
But would you suggest, I mean, from a financial standpoint, does it make more sense to buy, lease?
It really depends on where you're at. So
Okay.
when I was putting tons of miles on a car, definitely buying a used car was super smart because you can write off every mile you're using for work.
Oh, yeah.
That
That's a
time
good
it was
point.
35 cents a mile, I think. And, you know, I was writing off, so I was buying a car for 15 grand, 15, 20 grand, you know, something that was probably a $40,000 car.
Yeah.
At that time it was an expensive car.
Yeah, of course.
Like, that was like a BMW 5 Series, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I'd put 50,000 miles a year on it, so I'm writing $15,000 a year off against the value of the car.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 years, I paid for the car, and just in tax rebates, and then I'm, you know,
Smart.
and I'm burning up. So I'm burning, you know, and it's a car that can go for a couple 100,000 miles.
Yeah.
And so
That makes
how
sense.
that's how I was using cars back then.
Yep.
I don't put very many miles on a car anymore
Because you're on planes a lot.
Yeah, I'm on too many planes.
Yeah.
So like I have a Toyota 4Runner because I put surfboards in it all the time.
Nice.
I have a Defender 110 too, which
I'm not familiar. Which one's a Defender?
So a Defender 110 is a really hard car to buy in America.
Huh.
It's like the safari trucks you see in Africa.
Oh,
and stuff.
sick.
They have to be 25 years old. They're really hard to import.
Really?
So anyways, that's like my toy car.
Yeah.
But we just buy and own cars.
Yeah.
My wife actually just traded in a Q7 TDI. She had an Audi
Okay, yeah.
turbo diesel that she traded in for the new electric Audi e-tron. Their new SUV, all electric SUV.
Oh, I didn't know they had an all electric now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's a really interesting car. But when she was looking at that, I suggested she lease it because the technology is changing so fast in those.
Yeah.
With electric cars that you're probably going to trade it in a year or two, anyways.
Yeah.
So that's a terrible reason. You know, don't buy a car you're only going to hold for a couple of years.
True.
I think the reason you buy a car is because, in my opinion,
Yeah.
it's a car that is going to retain its value that you're going to drive for a while.
Not many cars retain value well, do they? Or I'm not honestly very knowledgeable when it comes to
so
cars.
like if you buy like Toyota 4Runners do, 89% are still on the road that were ever made.
Wow.
Like the Q7 TDI turbo diesel, I think she traded it in for, after 4 or 5 years of owning it, for, you know, probably, she bought it from a dealer's wife, and it was slightly used when she bought it.
Yeah.
So the expensive miles are off. She drove it for 4 or 5 years. I think she probably retained 70% of the value of that car.
Wow.
Because the TDIs are engines that drive for a long, long time.
Okay.
You put 500,000 miles on those.
Have you ever thought about going the electric route, like Tesla or something? Or?
Well, so we have an electric SUV now. We have the
yeah.
e-tron.
Yeah.
I don't like the way Elon Musk runs companies.
Really? Why is that?
Well, because I don't think he's responsible with his shareholders.
Uh-huh.
I think he takes a lot of unnecessary risks. He's very egocentric. I don't think he should be running public companies. He's been fined for bad behavior.
Yeah.
His rocket company, SpaceX, was horribly run.
Does he still own that? Or?
He still does.
Okay.
Almost went out of business a couple times. Blew up a lot of rockets.
So do you think he's the definition of takes too much risk? Because obviously he's had a ton of success from that. But
Well, yeah. I mean, he's taking massive risks. He's
Massive.
bet everything multiple times.
Yeah.
Almost went out of business multiple times.
That's ballsy.
He's been very, very successful.
Yeah.
But I also think I think he would be much better off running a government agency, and I think he's a very good lobbyist. I mean, SpaceX, almost all their business is government launches.
Oh, really?
And he's lobbied to outlaw competition. You know, with the Russian rocket ban was all about not allowing, you know, Arianespace and other competitors to launch rockets.
And that was him pushing that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, look, Arianespace is launches out of the Eurospace port down in French Guiana. They do most of the commercial launches in the world. They can put more things, for example, into geostationary, heavy lifts into geostationary orbit than anybody.
Yep.
And the only way that he was able to compete was by outlawing them in the United States from doing defense launches.
Wow.
And not allowing Russian rockets to launch anything in the United States. Soyuz rockets are very efficient, inexpensive ways to do heavy lift.
Huh.
You can launch those in Baikonur, you know, in Kazakhstan, at the Russian launch facility.
Okay.
Or you can launch them in French Guiana. But yeah, so
What do you think it takes then to run a successful company? Because you obviously do it and have done it.
well, I think like a guy like Elon Musk, like it's
Yeah.
like, to me, he could be a Steve Jobs if he had a Tim Cook.
Tim Cook's the new CEO, right?
Yeah, but he was like running the company, and he was doing these really creative supply chain deals, in China, where they monopolize the manufacturing of the iPhones and things like that, so nobody can really compete with them for multiple years. He was doing really creative, brilliant stuff on the operations side that not only that enabled the creative ideas that Steve Jobs helped bring to life with their engineering teams to not only come to life, but to be protected long enough to be profitable for their shareholders at Apple.
Are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
Okay,
Gary V,
Gary V. So are you more of your personal style? Would you say you're more of a Steve Jobs or a Gary V, or somewhere in between in terms of I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is Steve Jobs was a very intense boss. Gary V is more, throws a lot of love your way. Obviously, both smart guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm probably different. I mean, I hate to compare myself to. They've outshone me in success, I think. But I don't like the way Steve Jobs treated people. Mm-hmm. I don't think you treat people as a means to an end. I think people deserve a lot more than that. Even if maybe you have to part company with people, there should be respect and mutual understanding. And I think you can always learn from everybody. Mm-hmm. I think Gary V is. I like how direct both of them were. Yeah. I love how Steve Jobs, and I think he had he needed to have as much control as he did to drive ideas to completion. Mm-hmm. And he brought some amazing ideas to life and really helped transform the world in a lot of special ways. Yeah. The fact that we carry computers in our pockets.
Yeah, both of us have his creation right here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that people can't live without that. When I was a kid, our first computer was an Apple II. And it's like late 70s, early 80s. My mom hated it. It was hard to use. You had to learn a new language, an operating system language to even run an application. Wow. It was made for hobbyists because it was so hard to use. The experience sucked. Yep. With the Mac, he realized if we transformed the experience of using a computer, if we had an object-oriented database, if we could point and click with a mouse, more people will use computers. My mother still wouldn't use it because she didn't want to use a computer. Why would she use a computer? She wasn't trying to do more calculations. Yeah. She's like, I already have a calculator. Mm-hmm. At that time, computers were mainly used for spreadsheets or for gaming or things like that, writing code. Mm-hmm. My dad used it for spreadsheets. My brother and I learned to write code on it and basically play video games and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think what he really figured out was making from the Mac to the iPhone was through the iPod and different things that they innovated on, was figuring out how to make it so intuitive and so elegant that toddlers, they can't read, they can't write, they can barely speak, but this iPhone, which has more computing power than all the computers in the world in the early 60s, can be run by a toddler. In fact, probably better than by her grandmother. Right. And
that's bizarre.
That to me is all about why brand experiences matter so much. That when you can effectively make a revolution in an experience where everybody's using what you're offering because it's elegant, it solves a problem, it adds value to their life, and you're not. It's really hard to change behaviors. I think it's easier to put products inside of behaviors or inside of existing habits. And I think what he did was basically find ways to enhance our communication, enhance how we share memories with each other, images with each other, how we share music, how we use music. He didn't invent MP3s or WAV files, but he basically made a solution for how to use and share music that effectively saved the music industry. Yeah. I mean, they were being destroyed by Napster.
I was just about to say Napster. I'm blank on that guy's name. I can't remember his name. Seth something or no?
Yeah, he was
in the movie, the Facebook movie.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have great. I've ended up meeting so many people.
I think he made money with Facebook as well.
He did. He was like a early investor in Facebook when they were in Silicon Valley. Yeah. When they moved. So he was at Napster. God, what's his name? Oh, anyways, if you look it up
real quick. I'm curious. And another point, as we're getting closer to wrapping up, that I'd love to pick your brain on is you sound like you've probably read a lot of books in your day. Yeah. Are there a few that you would like? Someone that's sitting next to you that would, or anyone that's listening that wants to be more successful, that is looking at you and saying, "Hey, this guy has got to figure it out." To an extent, what are some books that you really feel like really should read?
I mean, it depends what people want. There's a lot of different business books I love. I'm reading How Brands Grow, which I think is one of the best books I've read on branding.
Sean Parker, by the way.
Sean
Napster.
Parker, that's right. Piece of work.
Okay, How Brands Grow.
How Brands Grow is a great one. That's all actual research on what actually makes brands successful, rather than a lot of the myths that people perpetuate around brand development. I also think, Jim Collins' books are some of my favorites. I love Good to Great.
Yep,
which is all about.
I read that actually. Yeah.
He actually, a friend of mine put me in touch with him before he became really famous when he was still at Stanford. I was trying to figure out what to do next at one point in my life, and he sent me what became kind of famous, this hedgehog concept. What are you passionate about that you can be best in the world at, where you can make money, where those three things intersect? Mm-hmm. Focus on that. Hard to figure that out, but
what are you passionate about? On that note, real quick.
Adventure.
Yeah, that's what I gathered.
Getting out there.
Yep. Okay, so that's one. Good to Great.
Good to Great. Yeah. How Brands Grow. Yep. It kind of depends what people are thinking about too. There's a book. What is it? Man, my brain is. I'm just getting back from different time zones, so I'm a little jet lagged, unfortunately.
No, you're good. You're still super sharp. So yeah, and maybe just like personal development or just business related. Yeah, stuff like that. It's always interesting to me. And also, do you consume not just through books? Are you consuming media via podcasts? Or are you consuming?
I am. I listen to Pete Holmes' podcast. He's a friend of mine.
Okay.
He has one called "You Made It Weird." That's really good. And then
nice. And then I want to shout out to anyone listening. Kick Aspirational is your podcast.
It is my podcast.
Nice.
I also listen to Rob Bell's. He has a great one called the Robcast.
The Robcast.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I'm trying to.
You're good. I'll talk while you're looking for that. I mean, I think it's interesting. The cool thing about podcasts is just the long form aspect. Even though they're not all like this, I think you're just, when you have a long form format, you're going to be able to talk about a lot more, simply put. So it's better than almost any other medium, in my opinion.
Deep and simple. One of the great books. Mr. Rogers used to give away. Fred Rogers used to give away this book to everybody. It was called Deep and Simple.
Deep and Simple.
And he said, I think the problem in the world is that people, are complicated and shallow. And really, what we need to, where we're going to find personal fulfillment is by becoming deep and simple humans. And it's a book that has helped a lot of people, like in prison. It's a lot about meditation and the importance of meditation and things like that. But it's just a great book.
Yeah, you said it's called Shallow and Complex.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, deep and simple. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tremendous. I'm constantly reading.
Is there a certain, you try to read X amount of books a week or a month, or not like that?
I'm always reading different things. I love the Flashman Chronicles. I love fun books. I just read Paris in the Present Tense by Mark. I'll think of his last name. Anyways,
Mark something.
Yeah, but anyways, there's so many. I'm always traveling with some book in my hand, or some book that. I just gave away a book on private equity investing and direct selling to a bunch of people that I thought was excellent. That just came out by Brett Blake. I remember that one. There's so many great books. What are some of the books that you're thinking about?
Think constantly. So yeah, that's my thing. I read a lot more articles than I do books. I'll just surf around on entrepreneur.com, inc.com, political websites, CNN and whatnot, and just consume a lot of content that way.
Yeah. Mark Halperin. Paris in the Present Tense.
Yeah, but I want to get more into the book.
Do you read like The Economist or the Financial Times or Fast Company?
I've read The Economist, but not on a daily basis. That's something I actually probably should do, and Fast Company as well. Yeah. Are those ones you highly recommend? Yeah. Business Insider, do you recommend?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, when I was in university, we had to subscribe to the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. And we had, in international relations and political science.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful because you learn to go to sections where you get value. The op-ed section is usually really good on opinion.
Yep.
I think The Economist is one of the best things if you're going to invest your time in politics.
Yeah.
Read something that people write from outside the United States.
Yeah.
Particularly about us.
That's a good point.
But I think they're fairly well moderated, and they have great opinion pieces and great news.
Yep.
And it's fairly dense, so you actually get you get some real information.
Yeah. That's one of the things that has turned me away a little bit from even like the CNNs that
I hate watching. I don't watch TV news.
Yeah.
I think it's a waste of time.
I used to, and now not so much because it's just all you're not really learning that much.
I also think it's designed to, excite the worst emotions. I think it's designed to instill fear, upset.
100%.
I think it's designed for all the worst things.
Yep.
And it's not really telling you all the best stories. It's telling you the stories that are going to upset you the most, so you can't turn it off.
100%.
And yeah, I'm not a big fan of television news. If I do watch television news, I prefer Al Jazeera or the BBC.
Yeah.
Not about Israel.
No, it's fair.
But I think Al Jazeera about America is one of the more balanced news services, strangely. And I think the BBC is pretty good.
They're trusted as well, absolutely.
Yeah, but I really hate watching American news.
Yeah, no, I feel it, especially nowadays. I mean, I feel like it just keeps getting worse. Although it is entertaining watching the impeachment hearings, but I actually have been watching some C-SPAN recently, and that's been kind of interesting because it's not filtered. You're just watching.
You're just seeing it live.
Yeah. Biggest advice to someone chasing their dreams. What is it? Just on a high level, any dream, whether they're fucking teacher, entrepreneur, whatever it is.
I think the first is interview some people that are doing what you want to do. Mm-hmm. Ask them a lot of questions. Figure out if that's actually what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't feel, like when I wanted to go to law school, my dad had me interview a bunch of attorneys and judges and people we knew, and I would ask them what they did, and they'd tell me really interesting things. He would ask them how many hours a week they worked, and if if they were happy.
Yeah.
Because I think as a doctor, he was suffering a little bit from that.
Yeah.
He talked my brother and I out of being doctors. He said, you guys like the lifestyle, but do you really want to get up at 3 a.m. to fix a drunk's face who won't pay you? And by the way, by the time you guys get here, you won't have this lifestyle anymore.
Wow.
And it wasn't that it was all about the money, but he was saying, look, it's expensive to go to medical school.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of years of your life, and then you're locking yourself in to this. Mm-hmm. Is that really what you want? If it is because you're really in it for the cause, then great. Mm-hmm. But just be aware that's what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing with when I got into good law schools, but he kind of didn't talk me out of it. He just exposed me to other avenues. He had me go interview people who were doing that, and then is this really what you want to? Because it's going to be expensive to get there.
Yep.
And then you're going to be locked in. You're going to have to go do that. So I think first figure out if that's really what you want.
Good point.
And if it is, so interview some folks, map it out. I think a big question is, are you passionate about it? Do you think you can be really good at it, like best in the world? Mm-hmm. And can you make money at it? Mm-hmm. Where those three circles intersect, if that answer is yes, then probably you should go after it, interview some people that are doing it, and then plan it out. How are you going to get there from here? What's that path look like? Doesn't mean that's exactly the path you're going to follow, but don't walk in cold. Like, have a plan. Don't come to a gunfight with a spoon.
Exactly. The spoon's not going to work unless that spoon turns into a gun.
Right.
So becoming the best in the world, as we start to wrap it up, there's one segment that we do at the end of each podcast that's pretty goofy, and you don't have to do it, but you would be the first person to deny it.
Okay. What is it?
No pressure, though. Yeah. So basically, I could say something cheesy. I'll say something cheesy. So,
so this globe thing?
Yeah, it has to do with the globe. So you remember you asked about that earlier? I was like, you'll see. So you've probably touched many people across the globe, it sounds like, all over the place. You've been all over the world.
Yep.
And honestly, this came from a place that was not profound at all, but I try to turn this into something that's maybe a little profound. But you've touched a lot of people in the world, and I'm sure you're going to touch a lot more in a positive way.
I hope so.
Of course you will. And you've now touched me, and I super appreciate your time. I really do.
Hope it was a good touch.
Yeah, it was a good touch. It was a good touch, for sure. I appreciate it. And so the one of the last segments in this little podcast thing is we try to make that globe float. And so to make it float, what you'll do is you just pull the globe off, and so that's the first step. Yep, just exactly. And then that little white piece right there, that's next to it. It's on the table. I don't know if you can see it from there. Yeah. So you want to hold that over the globe, and then you basically just want to get it to float in the middle.
So I do it like this?
Yeah, buddy, just like that. And so you want to bring the globe up a little higher. Yeah, and then you want to basically get it to float midair and spin. And when you spin it, you just want to kind of spin it lightly. And don't worry, no one got it immediately. It takes a second. And then, you basically just want it to float, and then you lightly spin it. You want to go a little higher. Basically,
is there color changes when it's floating?
Oh yeah, no, the color just keeps changing either way. And one of the I guess tips is basically if the globe touches that white piece, then that'll be easiest usually. So you want to bring the globe up. Just right around there, and then you just kind of slowly move the remove the white piece, and
Oh, I see.
yeah, exactly. So
okay.
yeah, so you'll get it. And yeah, and then once it's floating, then you'll like lightly tap it and get it spinning. Honestly, you're going to be one of the quicker ones if it's already floating. Now the question is, will the tap? Oh, if you don't touch it again, I think you're good. Oh yeah, you got it. That actually, I'm gonna put like edit a video with everyone who's done it and see how long it took. You're probably one of the quickest now.
Well, you gave me some pretty good help with making having this white thing touch the top. Yeah.
It's interesting though. I had one guy that's like, it's interesting how people react. He's like, do I even need this white piece? Like how you're dissecting it, but you just went right for it, knocked it out.
Well, you gave me good advice. I think
you.
I compliment the teacher. The student was. I was questioning how long it was going to take me at first. I was like, I don't get it.
Well, I've been the student the whole podcast, so I appreciate all the teaching.
Well, thanks, Ben. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, no, I appreciate it, and glad to now have you in my life. And one of the last things now too is how can people find you? Or
sure. So I'm on Instagram. Is one of the easiest ways. I'm David58, David58, DAVEED58.
You have to say like David.
And then we have a Kick Aspirational Instagram page as well. Kick Aspirational, like kick ass in an inspirational, positive way, which is all about helping people break through barriers in their life. I tell some stories from my own life and then interview other people who are trying to break through barriers of their own or have.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are good places to get me. They can DM me. They can reach out to me there. And we'll have to have you on Kick Aspirational.
Oh, I'd be honored.
Awesome,
I'm honored to have you here. I appreciate it.
Nice to
Thank you
meet you.
so much.
How'd you find me?
So Match.com. So one of the cool things is, and this is one of the reasons that I thought like there's a chance, no matter what, I'm going to enjoy doing this podcast, but there's a chance that it might actually eventually kick off a little bit in terms of traction.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I think so is because I have some connections I built over the years that will bring me some cool people. But in addition to that, the other route that I'm going is honestly just finding people through either Google searches or Instagram. And I found you, I think, through Instagram originally, seeing the Laguna Beach tag, for example.
Oh, cool.
So there's a lot of cool people that either live here or come through here. And so I think that's how I originally found you, and found some really cool people that way.
Yeah, and we have my wife and I have 2 houses. We're going to be neighbors here eventually.
Oh, I love it.
When that gets rebuilt.
Hey, come over whenever.
Awesome, man.
I love it.
All right,
cool.
Ben.
So two more pieces.
Okay.
One more piece before we end it. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, or you got everything that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think it's been a great conversation. I'm going to take a picture of us real quick.
Oh, we'll definitely do it.
Here, hold that.
Absolutely.
Hold this
Yes. Let's get it. So you can see it.
Nice.
I love it. And so the very last thing we do on the show is just whether it's a musician or someone who's not a musician, which the majority of people are not musicians, is a song. The song we could either both sing or we just play, or you sing. It can go however you want. It's up to you.
You know, in karaoke, I always do "Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong.
Let's do it. I mean, is that your pick? I'm up for it if you are.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? You pull it up on karaoke or something?
So yeah, I'll just pull it up on YouTube, honestly, and then just play it, and then we'll just go at it.
Let's do it, man.
That walks us out.
All right.
Sorry, it was Wonderful World?
"Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong.
Nice. I feel like this sounds vaguely familiar, and once I hear it, I'm going to know it. Let's see.
Yeah, it's kind of a classic.
Yep.
It's not the most exciting song in karaoke, but it's fun to sing.
Hey, that's just as good. And we got the Wim Hof in.
Dude, I'm really excited to meet Wim Hof. He's
he's coming down here through your friend.
I think he has Tom Hale. Yeah, I can introduce you to Tom Hale. He'd be an interesting interview.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Cold water. So he swam in St. Petersburg in February. I mean,
it's in Russia.
Yeah, really cold. Yeah,
wow.
He's done some crazy. He swum across from Catalina here. He swum English Channel. He's fascinating guy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love that. Is this
Are we listening to it? That's it.
I see skies. Red roses too.
Sing it.
I see them bloom for
Oh, you actually have a good voice.
me and you. And I think to myself,
What a wonderful world he's been all over.
what a wonderful world.
Keep treating us. I'm gonna walk it out. Here, if you don't mind holding it
I
out.
see skies of white.
Skies of blue.
The clouds of white. The bright blessed day and the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, oh dear God, what a wonderful world.